and welcome to Big Witch Energy, the podcast that journeys into the wonderful and witchy world of Motherland, Fort Salem. We're going to recap and discuss all of the delicious content in every episode. I'm Bree.
And I'm Theora.
Come along with us while we dive deep into the hows, whys, whos, and what of this amazing show.
Why, hello there, everyone. We are halfway through season 2.
Yes, episode 5. Are you excited?
5. So excited. This one is one of my favorites this season or ever.
Yeah, me too. There's so much in this episode.
There is. It is so much fun stuff.
And a unicorn pencil.
Mm-hmm. That is used in the best possible way. So, But before we jump into all the fun, we have a super interesting listener question. It's from Tash's Stuff, who writes, "Hey, I still have some minutes left on the current podcast episode." I'm sure you do because they're super long. But
yeah, sorry, not sorry.
Sorry, not sorry. Glad you're listening. But you made me think of something. You said Rael got tortured for a week or something and is very pissed and looks like a zombie. She does. She looks like a zombie on many episodes.
Yeah. Anytime Rael's been tortured either physically or emotionally.
Yeah. They're like, okay, Taylor, zombie mode, go. Glad you also see that. I thought, hey, what about Silla? She got tortured for however long in that dungeon. Thank you. We need the lost time. We still don't know. And is all good when she goes to Mama Collar. Shouldn't she have like traumatic memories? Because I can't imagine that left her completely unaffected. Shouldn't she have nightmares and flinch away when someone tries to touch her? Parentheses, maybe Ray trying to be affectionate next season? Question mark. What are your thoughts on this? So thank you for that question because yes, what a great question. Shouldn't we all have PTSD after being tortured by Elliot?
Yeah, I mean, it's
I have
a
PTSD.
lot. I do too. It's a lot. I mean, not to put a light joke on the struggles of people with PTSD.
Yes.
It's just
no, exactly.
Silla was in that dungeon going through, the torture of, they were torturing her with work. They were torturing her with trying to get into her mind, which one imagines has to be painful. She was screaming, so I would think so. Alder came at her, and you know how powerful Alder is. And yet she didn't break during that entire time until they brought Rael in, which was the only thing that got to her. So I think that Silla does have some residual trauma from that situation, but whether through the problem we have with time or through the fact that Silla's very closed as a character, we didn't get a lot of her in screen time wise in season 2, so there wasn't a lot of time to explore that with her. But it'd be really interesting to see them get into it in season 3 when she and Rael are actually together.
It's mini spoiler.
Mini spoiler. Who hasn't seen the finale? I'm sorry. But yeah, so I personally would think that she would have some, like I said, residual trauma. I don't know to what extent, because we don't know how long she was in there. And she's not everyone's going to show trauma in the same way. So someone could have a very different reaction or trigger, and it could just be super down low for Silla. Who knows?
Yeah, to answer your question more directly, like about how she would kind of behave, like flinching versus like nightmares kind of scenario, I feel like Silla's the type where she'd internalize it more kind of when she's not suppressing, but I guess processing the trauma in the dungeon. So I feel like her manifestations of like post-traumatic stress disorder, PTSD, would be more along the lines of like probably nightmares or things like that versus like flinching from affection, because unless Rael was the one torturing her or they were glamoring at somebody as Rael, which they wouldn't because that's spree work, and like there's no association between like Rael and the torture enough that where
Mm-hmm.
like Rael would trigger like a PTSD. I feel like it's going to be more mental for Scylla because it was more mental type of torture they were doing with her.
Yes.
So like Anacostia brought like the family photos. So it was more like playing on her emotions and playing on like internal trauma she already had. So I feel like maybe those kinds of memories would be more of a trigger versus like Rael specifically, because they really only used Rael to bring emotions out of her, and I don't see them using Rael to torture her. Otherwise, like bringing Rael into the dungeon wouldn't have had Anacostia's effect of like breaking her emotional walls. You know what I mean? So I don't think that like affection is going to be a trigger for her. I think it's going to be more like residual type of memories or something that would trigger her, because I do think, we don't know how long she was in that dungeon, but it wasn't a day. It was definitely more than that. So, and they kept her in that room with like bright lights and like definitely did all kinds of psychological torture on her. So I do feel that she has something residual, but it would be more of an internal manifestation for Scylla based on who she is and like the type of torture they were doing to her.
Yes, exactly. You summed it up very well.
Yeah. So
But I could see us seeing her have nightmares in season 3
yeah,
from this. And
totally.
I also could see her having insomnia.
Yeah. No, exactly. Yeah, I could totally see that too. I mean, again, like you mentioned, we don't see enough of Scylla. We don't see people processing anything ever in the show, really, which is really unfortunate. Mostly probably because of timing, but I can imagine when she first got out of the dungeon and like was in the safe house with Willa, she probably couldn't sleep for like a few days.
Oh, absolutely.
Because like think about it, you go from like being trapped in a room with like bright lights all the time for God knows how long, and then suddenly you're in a quiet room that's dark by yourself. Like it's a very jarring, like when she gets in the safe house and it's like by herself in like a room versus like the dungeon she's been
Mm-hmm.
in. So I imagine there was an adjustment period for Scylla where like there was residual PTSD and she was processing that. We just never got to see it.
Yeah, and I could see her getting a bit. I could see her being a little bit more jumpy and irritable as well.
Yeah. The question
So
the question with Scylla too is, well, how long does it take her to process something like that? Because I feel like she's mentally pretty strong and has gone through trauma throughout her life. So she might be better at coping with it. And perhaps we won't see it in season 3 because she's kind of already processed it to the best
could
of her
be.
ability. So who knows? But I, I think we're in agreement. There was PTSD stuff happening off screen this season. We didn't see it, and so the question is is she done or will it pop up in
Yeah,
season 3?
exactly.
I can see it either way because we didn't get to see her process anything, so it's really difficult to tell where she's at mentally with any of that. And
Yeah. And I know some people were had some issue with how yeah. I just don't see her having I don't see her as a person having a lot of bad reaction to Anacostia or a lot of heart, like a lot of physical manifestations of PTSD.
Yeah. So, we'll see, but there was definitely some PTSD going on there for her too. I think it's like the main takeaway. So,
The
they
character we see the most PTSD symptoms from is Abigail, obviously. So
yeah. Yeah, truly.
she gets the classics.
She's the only one we see really process or have active PTSD on screen, kind
Mm-hmm.
of. I mean, Rael gets Willa collar triggered all the time, but like
Mm-hmm.
we never get to see Rael process anything ever.
Nope. She
So,
doesn't have any time to process anything.
no. which I have an issue with, but So thank you for that question. It was a really fun one.
It was wonderful.
Yes, if anyone has any other questions or things, please let us know.
Yes.
All right. But with that, we have one more piece of business.
Yes.
Yes.
So we asked everyone to help us name the British witch from The Hague, and we were informed, for goodness sakes, I did not write down the name of who told us this. I'm so sorry. I'll have to go back and put it in the tweet, but that her name is General Amos.
Oh, it's at Costia Rue.
Costia Rue. Thank you so much. So her name is General Amos, and we needed a first name, and everyone that answered, thank you very much. And we've got from Marianne, Alice, from Starcross Switch, Betty, from Lisa, we have Beatrice and Agnes from Sandy, and then Hestia from Clone Poster. And then you had one from Jane Ash, didn't you? On Instagram?
She agreed with me that it should be Fanny.
Which I think is a hilarious name, but
I agree.
But the name with the most likes came
Jane
from
Ash. We lost.
We lost. I'm so sorry, Jane, but the most likes was Beatrice. So,
woo!
our lovely friend Lisa won on that one, and it's General Beatrice Amos. So be Amos.
She's badass. So it works. It checks out. It's a Hague name.
Yeah.
You heard it here first, folks. General Beatrice.
And there you have it. So there's that business out of the way.
Yeah, and with that, we can dive into episode 5.
Brianna's favorite pencil.
Mm-hmm.
Such a good name for the episode.
I'm digging the episodes that are just named after random women.
Yeah.
We had Tiffany last episode. I love it. Keep it going.
Yeah, for real. This one's written by Nicole Avenia and directed by Jason Stone. So we're going to start off on the train. And let me tell you, this gives me so many Murder on the Orient Express vibes.
Yeah,
that is ridiculous. And I now want to go back through every Agatha Christie ever and watch it. I want an AU Motherland Agatha Christie on a train mystery, please. Somebody. Anybody.
Yes. Anybody help.
Help me. No. So we're on the train with, let me tell you, this train is going around a mountain that looks super precarious. Like the track is right on the edge of this drop off from a mountain. And I'm like, that gives me anxiety just watching the train. Yeah.
It reminds me, if anyone out there can relate, just roads in Italy that are just
Sweet Jesus.
No, it's terrifying. But there's roads on the coast, and they're super narrow, winding around mountains, and there's there's not even a barrier. It's just if you turn to it, you might fall off. So it had that energy where it's all right, it's we're living life on the edge. If you're not a good driver, fuck you. It's kind of what it is.
You're dying.
You're just gonna die.
Fortunately, they avoid that fate of dying, that particular one anyway. And we have in the train Sharma, a companion of hers, who I can assume is her assistant, Adil and Khalida. So they're just trucking along on the side of that mountain, and Sharma is trying to charm the pants off of Khalida and tells them that India can provide complete autonomy for the Turim, and then offers her food. Because we have great food. This is I agree, but also I don't think the food's really on Khalida's mind. So
Hey man, but it's like long ride. You want a snack? You want a snack?
You want some nankatai?
Yeah.
Here, have some nankatai. It does look yummy, but Kalita wants to know what the Indian military is going to expect of the Turim, because there's no deal without a catch.
Mm-hmm.
She's like, okay, what's the other shoe? Tell me what we need to give you. And Sharma denies this. And then Adil kind of tries to step in and soften things to clarify, what Kalita is trying to say, but really just let Kalita do the business, because at least she just gets to the point. And it does piss off the generals that she's talking to, whether it be Alder or Sharma at this point, but it gets the job done. And that's the thing. What do you want from us?
I'm just surprised they didn't have this conversation earlier. Like, why are they having this now when Kalita's already decided to go to India?
Yeah,
It
same.
seems out of place. Like, it's really weird.
Shouldn't you have talked about this before
Right.
you even got on a plane?
Because Kalita's whole thing is like, we don't want to be pawns and be taken advantage of. So I would imagine she'd cut this deal before they were on this train. So it's just like exposition for our sakes, but it just feels out of place here.
It does feel out of place. I do. I like that we get this scene on the train and get to see what kind of style General Sharma rides in.
Oh yeah, for sure. Like, it's a cool scene. The conversation just seems out of place. But I do love when it opens. Immediately Sharma's like shading Alder, and Alder isn't even there.
Yeah, I know.
She's like, India, unlike the United States, can provide autonomy for your people. And it's like, Sharma, Alder's not here to shade. But she's always shading Alder, and I love it.
That's her.
It's so good.
It's her secondary goal in life, is to shade Alder.
It's so good, even when she's not there.
Yeah, exactly. I also wonder if Kalita was super into getting to India. She wants to get away from Fort Salem. She's not comfortable there. She doesn't like General Alder. So that's another reason I think she was like, okay, let's go to India. Maybe that's why she didn't discuss it before. She wouldn't have discussed it before. And I agree that exposition for our sake, but also she doesn't want she's kind of at the point where she still doesn't want Adil to get too attached to Abigail, even though that ship has sailed.
Yeah, lots of things are changing, and she's trying to keep the Turim.
Exactly. She's trying to keep the status quo with the Turim and her brother and all of that stuff. But unfortunately for everyone involved, that lovely tea service that we see roll in at the beginning of the scene is infected, because as soon as General Sharma tries to drink her tea, witch plague comes out instead and gets up on her and her assistant. Adil and Kalita get up and flee, and we see them running through the train cars, and then we get an outside shot of the witch plague derailing the train, so we're not sure of what their fate is. Like, that witch plague just freaking took that train out.
Yeah. So my question is, what the fuck is going on with the witch plague? Because when we left off last season, it took weeks for that thing to try and kill Kalita.
Mm-hmm.
Now it can kill 2 witches and destroy an entire train in 20 seconds. Like, how do we get here? Like, how?
The only thing I can imagine is Albenhurst and his genetic engineering.
But the timetable for this doesn't make any sense.
No, it doesn't. It's way too fast.
Right.
Like, when was Kalita infected? And
not that long ago. It was like, because think about it, it was like what, Beltane time? So that was spring. Now we're in fall. So it's like a couple months. That's what I mean. Like, it doesn't make sense.
I wonder if they gave her a super... I don't know why they would.
Why would they? Kalita is like the Alder of the Turim. Like, they would want her dead, like, more than Abigail. So, like, you would give her the most powerful weapon you had at that time.
Unless that wasn't their goal for some reason. I don't know.
No, it doesn't make sense. This whole evolution of the witch plague makes no sense. And also, why is it destroying... So they market this thing as it only affects witches, but it destroys a train.
To get it destroys
why
the
was
train
it
to get to the
destroying?
witches, or
Why was
is
it
it trying
destroying
to
inanimate objects, like non-organic?
right? Is it trying to
Why?
destroy the train to destroy the witches? But that doesn't make any sense because it's affecting. It's supposed to go. Does this thing have a brain? That's my question.
Yeah, but if it does, why is it destroying inorganic stuff? Unless it's supposed to mimic the mycelium, which now, because it has Rael, can like affect inorganic stuff. But then, like, who's the Rael counterpart for the witch plague?
It would be whoever the source is of the witch plague, which would be
Yeah.
Sharma. But she's dead.
No.
I mean, but we don't see her die. We just see her
Right.
body.
Yeah, her and the assistant get eaten alive, I guess, by the witch
covered in the witch plague.
In the web of witch plague, yeah.
Because we saw Penelope walking around. Whoa, that's a spoiler. Crap.
Right. I mean, again, we're not there with the witch plague, but we're still at this point where it can spring to life very quickly. Also, so there had to be somebody on the train who was a human who planted the damn thing.
Mm-hmm.
Also, so
yeah,
Camarilla infiltrating other governments. There's that. I don't understand how it destroyed the train. I can see it affecting the conductor, and then I guess it fell off the rails from there. But it was destroying compartments in there, so it was destroying pieces of the train before we got to it colliding into the mountain piece, which is weird.
It was going through. The only thing I can figure is in its effort to get through the train to get to Adil and Kalita, it offset the train cars so much that they fell off the rails.
Maybe. Just how do we get here with it took weeks to try and kill Kalita to it destroys a train?
Dear Elliot.
Less than a minute. It doesn't make any sense.
It's just another question we need to ask Elliot.
Makes no sense. But yeah.
Oh well.
So
well, there we have it.
That was the train debacle. And so it's implied that people died, but we don't know who they are yet. And
yes.
From that debacle, we head over to a continuation of the end of the last episode, finally, where Alder and Tally are in Alder's office after Tally barged in at the end of last episode. And Alder is setting the mood because she understands Tally's energy and is like, okay, you're clearly feeling stuff. Let's put on Delta Blues.
Classic.
On this old, what is it?
Phonograph.
Yeah. So we have witch plagues that can destroy trains, but we're using this technology to play music.
Well, it's Alder, so she's old school.
And Alder says, do you like civilian music? Because I enjoy it immensely. So that's another little thing.
Tidbit.
It's another thing Alder likes. So she mentioned whiskey's the one thing civilians got right, but she also likes their music. So I thought that was cute.
Mm-hmm.
But truly, she's setting the mood for this conversation because there's a fire going on in the background, and it's okay, Alder, we get it. And Tally is still pretty tight from the last episode and is like, Alder, I barge in here, give me answers. And Alder's like, where did you hear the name Nyctopatan? Because I thought I erased that name from all the history books. And Tally just cuts to the chase with what she wants to know. And she's like, listen, I know she was at the martyrdom with you in Liberia, and that messed her up. And Alder's like, me at the martyrdom with Nycta? I wasn't there. I don't know what you're talking about. And Tally's like, yeah, bullshit. You were there. And when Tally basically calls her out, the record starts skipping, and the lyrics "Be with me" keep repeating over and over again. And there's a crack of thunder and lightning outside. So I think that's a hint of Alder's inner emotions and inner thoughts. And she gets very sincere in this moment and basically says, well, the loss of Esterbrook. So Esterbrook was the leader of the rebels in this martyrdom. And she's like, well, the loss of Esterbrook and the rebels is one of my deepest regrets. And that's basically what we've been kind of saying. I think that's why this memory is coming out, because Alder really does regret it. And I think Alder kind of regrets not just how that situation was handled, but I think it's the consequences of what came out of this is what's weighing on Alder, because we see her committing war crimes all the time, honestly. So, and I think the biggest impact of what went down in this martyrdom is what happened to Nicta and how Nicta responded to this, because Alder kind of created her own worst enemy when she did this. But anyway, she keeps going like, well, when Liberia devolved into chaos, so Alder went rogue and like used Nicta's work against these rebels. Then all hell broke loose. And remember, this is the Forever Front, so they're still fighting this thing Alder did. And Alder says, well, when all the chaos started happening, omitting because of what I did, she says, I deemed it more prudent to obscure my direct involvement. So Alder created a clusterfuck in Liberia and then was like, you know what? It's probably for the best that no one knows I was here, which is pretty fucked up when you think about it. And Tally's like, okay, sure, let's put aside the way that's fucked up for a second and get back to Nicta. Why cover her up then? So it's revealed that like Nicta deserted essentially right after this happened. And it's totally understandable why, because she was, when we saw her in the dream, like she was basically horrified that Alder used her own work to kill innocent witches, like in her mind, because they were, Estabrook and her rebels surrendered. They were prisoners of war at that point, and Alder used Nicta's work to kill them, or have them kill themselves rather. And because of that action on Alder's part, Nicta then dedicated her life to taking down the army as a way to make for like up for this injustice towards witches, and like that's where the spree came from. And so, yeah, like Alder fucked up on so many fronts with this one action. Like truly, she created a never-ending war in Liberia and created the spree like from all of this. So it's super fucked up. But
Not
Alder,
to mention Nicta broke up with her.
yeah, this also, that was their breakup. Your heart's black, Sarah. You don't love me anymore. That's the subtext. That's also so that's why she puts Delta Blues on. She's like, if we're gonna have this conversation,
I gotta have the
I
song.
have to play me and Nicta's song. So and but Alder is like just sticking to the lie, even though she's like, okay, I'll give you breadcrumbs. She sticks to the lie. She's like, you know, Estabrook and the rebels killed themselves, like whatever. And when this conversation's over, or yeah, she kind of flips the prideful failings that Alder flips her own prideful failings onto Tally for having the audacity to barge into her office in the middle of the night. So she like deflects. She's like, enough about me and my bullshit. Like, Tally, how dare you? Like, you're a little war college nothing. Like, why are you in my office right now? And Tally's on the verge of tears because she's like, listen, I want answers. We're connected. And Alder's like, the time for that has passed. You're not a biddy. We're done. But Tally is just, again, so like overwhelmed and doesn't understand why this is happening. And she's like, I'm still having these memories. Like, what are you talking about? And then Alder does a little face journey where she's like, oh, fuck. Okay, so this is coming from my memories and you're still having them. And she's like, whatever, cool. I'm going to have Isadora give you something to make this connection, make sure this connection is like super severed. And so once again, Alder is assigning top priority problems to Isadora. And she's like, Isadora, I'll fix this, whatever this is. Like, get the fuck out of my office. And Tally leaves, and we linger on Alder for a bit, who looks really emotional. She has that scared look on her face that looks the same as that in the prior episode where before Tally had her first dream when she was like getting ready for bed. So I think indicating that like this whole Liberia thing really does haunt Alder, and like the fact that Tally now saw the actual truth, I think hits very deeply for Alder.
Oh, absolutely. And I think that Alder is afraid of how close Tally is, for one thing. I think she's also kind of maybe having some fear that there's just so many layers to the fuck up that she had.
Yes, there really is.
In Liberia, not only is it like on a personal level with Nicta, on the level of she's killed these innocent people who had surrendered, which is a war crime. She's gone against like her own kind of ethos that she likes to throw out in the world and then contradict. There's so much, and now Tally's like up in her face I don't know. She looks so shocked by Tally still being that connected to her. I wonder what she's actually. Can she still feel that herself? Why is Tally the only one in this duo that's getting all of this stuff sent? Is she just used to that happening with biddies? And so she's not picking up on it?
Well, I don't think that it's a two-way street anymore. I think because Tally is such a powerful knower, this is like the lingering connection piece, and I think that she's just better at picking this up. And what is Tally sending Alder? Like, there's nothing to like. Is she getting weird matrifocal dreams?
No, I just meant like from the aspect of why could she not feel Tally being that connected?
Probably because of the biddies, like you said.
Yeah.
I think she's just got other biddy connections. She's distracted by the spree, this war. Like, Alder has like 500 million things on her mind. She just lost Kalita. Like, I don't think, and it doesn't seem like has like high knowing capacity.
Yeah, she's not a knower.
Right, that's what I mean. I feel like this is more so an imbalance in their innate specialties when it comes to work, and that's why
that
Tally is having this imbalanced connection, and Alder really isn't.
Yeah, Tally,
like, you know,
I really think that Tally's the most powerful knower to ever like exist.
Probably,
honestly.
yeah, exactly. So she was a unique person to be in this position, and I just don't think it's reciprocated with Alder because she still got, she lost Tally and then was connected to another biddy. So like, if there is some connection with Tally, it's probably lost in the other biddy connections. Like, and exactly, and like, what is Alder going to get out of that? Like, suddenly she's a little bit more empathetic. Like, is that why she's playing music? Like,
empathetic and making some pottery. I don't know, the urge to make pottery.
Right. I don't know what Alder would get from Tally that would be like, oh, this is weird. It would probably be something she could ignore, if she had anything.
Images of having sex with Garrett.
I think she'd be disturbed.
I would.
I am disturbed.
Yes. So yeah, that whole scene it was a short scene that had way too much information packed into it to unpack. So
I agreed.
I think that we're gonna go from that to let's torture Rael some more. Except this time she's gonna get Silla triggered. She's always Silla triggered, let's be honest.
Always.
But Anacostia is going down the stairs and reminding her new cadets to work on their seeds. Which I like that. I like that they put that little tidbit in there. Anacostia has her noobs that she's working with. But Rael comes up the stairs and they meet on the landing. And when she sees her, she asks about Abigail and how she is. But Rael's not there to talk about Abigail. So she just says, oh yeah, she's fine. And she's there to ask about Silla. So she's like, did you know that Silla's, out and about, basically? And Anacostia immediately crosses her arms and gets ready, like digs in for this conversation. And she's like, why would I know anything about that? But Ray isn't a fool. Ray knows. Like, Rael is Lesbian Jesus. She knows when her ex is out and about and who knows about it.
She sure does.
So she says that she saw Silla and she holds up the picture that Silla dropped. And then Anacostia cuts her off, and he's like, okay, fine. So we know she's on the loose and she was on site at the protest, but as long as her being loose benefits the military, then she will be, So she's like, she is loose. We set her loose, or Anacostia isn't telling her the details, but so as long as she's out there and it's benefiting us, it's going to stay that way. And then Rael starts getting teary and kind of shaky. And it's like, is that as much of an answer as you're going to give me? And Anacostia softens a little. And she's like, that's more than I should tell you. And Rael asks about the photo, like, how did she get this? And then Anacostia just kind of like walks away. She's like, she's not going to answer that. She knows where the photo came from because obviously there's only one place.
Well,
I mean,
my question with that was like, does Anacostia know exactly where the photo came from? Because she did the fetch thing with Silla and Willa on the porch. And when you're doing a fetch, is it just your hearing or can you see what's going on? Like, does Anacostia know Willa collar exists? Is my question.
I think from the way that the fetch looks, there's a whole face there.
Right.
So I imagine the
Right.
see and hear thing. So, but here's the deal. We don't know how many times she peeked in on them. So she could have been present for any number of conversations where they discuss Rael or they discuss the fact that Willa is Rael's mother. So
right.
I work under the assumption that Anacostia knows very well who Willa is and will not tell Rael because that's not her thing to tell, number one. And number two, she doesn't need Rael even more up and, because I could see her thinking, oh my God, if I tell Rael that Willa's alive, Rael's going to go off and go find Willa. Because wouldn't you?
Right. And I think that would destroy Anacostia's mission.
Exactly.
That's the bigger issue. So
exactly.
I think that scene, the way Demetria plays it, I think she knows Willa's alive. And that's really why she was like, listen, you need to let this go. Because
exactly.
Don't go poking here.
Yeah, don't. This is not for you to poke at. It's like she's had this kind of confrontation with Rael before when Silla was in the dungeon, etc. And she gives a little more information this time, but she stops it where she knows that she will get in trouble if she gives any more. So she gives Rael some crumbs and then she leaves.
Yeah.
Poor Rael. Once again, tearful and shaky because Silla.
She had a lot of sad sass in that scene, which was nice.
She really did. I loved it. Taylor played that so well.
Indeed.
I mean, she plays everything so well, but that one, I don't know why that scene in particular gets to me, but it does. Just the way that she's looking at Anacostia for answers and has that quiet desperation.
Yeah. No, it's a very good scene for both of them, and it's very different from their previous scenes. There's a little bit more of a understanding, I think, between them at this point, or growth, or
mm-hmm.
I mean, growth obviously, but I think it's not so much that Rael's the bottom of the totem pole when it comes to Anacostia. It's more like they're getting more on equal footing.
They're coming to like you said, equal footing. They're going towards the same direction that Silla and Anacostia are in, coming to an understanding and being more on a friendly level than they are on just a superior and drill sergeant and cadet level.
Yeah, but I think that the important thing there is that definitely Anacostia's view of Rael has changed, but Rael's still like, of course you're fucking lying to me, like nothing's changed. So I think there's a subtle dynamic shift, but like Rael's not there yet.
No, she is not.
And understandable because she's being lied to again.
Mm-hmm. About one of her big triggers. She has two big triggers, Silla and Willa.
Right. And Anacostia is possibly very much lying to her about both of them.
Mm-hmm.
So speaking of Willa and Silla / Justine, meanwhile, in the Spree kitchen.
I love that it's the Spree kitchen.
Justine is on the phone with Bonnie, and Willa is hovering over her shoulder in the background. And Silla as Justine, is asking Bonnie about a Halloween party on Saturday. So it's telling us it's October, in case you didn't know. So we're officially in fall. So it's giving us a hint at what time it is in this world. And Halloween is on Saturday. And then while this is kind of happening, it cuts over to Jonas, who's a Spree minion in Willa's cell, who marches into the room and is packing a bag, and Willa tries to stop him, and she says, hey, this is a suicide mission. And Jonas very stubbornly is like, yeah, I know. And Willa tries to reason with this guy. She's like, listen, the Camarilla are picking us off, but he cuts her off, saying, I'm not here for the Camarilla. I'm here to change things so that our people can stop fighting their wars. So this is highlighting that while Willa, the leader of the cell, has shifted the mission to the Camarilla, the bigger picture, like not everybody in her cell is super on board with this. And we saw in the last episode, not every other spree cell is super on board with like forgetting the army for now. So Jonas is really like this indicator of like a true believer in the spree mission. So he's like willing to go on a suicide mission or whatever for the spree. And as they're kind of having this argument, Silla gets off the phone with Bonnie and comes to Willa's defense. And she's like, so throwing your life away is going to change the army, like killing us stuff? Like, come on, like, what are you doing? And Jonah tries to get all like big witch energy with Silla, and he's like, "Oh, summer child, what happened to you? You used to be a wild animal. Now you're just soft, ineffective, comfortable, weak." And you can see that Silla like hates this, but she's like taking it with a straight face. And Willa is getting angry on her behalf, and she's like, "How dare you talk to my daughter-in-law like that? This is some fucked up shit." And Jonas just kind of like is like, whatever. Like, we're obviously on different sides of this. I'm gonna go do spree stuff. You do whatever the fuck it is you're doing. And he leaves. But after that, after he exits the room, that's when Scylla's mask comes off and you see her like crumbling into herself. So like all the things he said about her really do affect her, even though she didn't let him see it in the moment. But Willa sees it because she has eyes, and she's like, listen, you're not weak. And Scylla tries to laugh it off and like pretend to be tough, but it's very clear that this got to her on a much deeper level. And Mama Collar gives her some really great advice in this moment. So listen to Mama Collar. And she says, there are things worth dying for, and there are things worth living for, and there's always a choice. And this line is so incredibly important because it's foreshadowing, number one. And also, this is advice I think that sticks with Scylla because it gives her something to think about. Like, she spent her whole life just as a Dodger trying to survive and hide. And in the spree, when she joined, she was, prepared to die for change, just like Jonas said, as a spree believer. But let's call back to like the fantasy conversation Scylla had with Rael right before the Bellwether wedding, where it's like, let's run away together and live on the beach. And like, that's when like things really changed for Scylla, where she wasn't just thinking about surviving one day to the next and just preparing to sacrifice herself. She was talking about living, which is interesting because that was the advice she gave Rael when they first met, which is like live a little kind of thing. And it's ironic because Scylla is not a person that had the opportunity to quote unquote live her life. She was just like surviving moment to moment. And that was really kind of the first conversation with Scylla where she was talking about living versus like fighting and surviving. And I think that this is important advice and something that's going to foreshadow like Scylla going forward, and it foreshadows like Mama Collar stuff too. But I think it's an important point that they're making here. Like Scylla is in a very different headspace than she was at the beginning. And there's, it's like the Clexa line. There's more to life than just surviving kind of thing. And that's kind of what this is. And I wanted to point out too, in this scene, what she's wearing, in her outfit, she's wearing that like puka shell little necklace. And she's been wearing this all of season 2. And in this particular scene, the shell is under her shirt. And I think it's a little symbolic, the shell, because it's the conversation with Rael, right? Running away to the beach. The beach was the last place Scylla felt safe. It's like this symbol of hope and living. And in this scene, she's wearing it under her shirt, almost like she's guarding the hope from being broken from reality, like from the outside world kind of thing. But she's keeping it close to the chest, close to her heart kind of thing, which I love.
It's so cute.
Mm-hmm.
I just love Scylla.
She's the best.
And I love Willa and Scylla together.
Me too. I do love them together a lot. They're super fun.
They have the same thing they're so in line now as far as what their goals are. I love how that came about, and there are a lot of things that are frustrating about the Willa storyline, but that's not one of them.
No.
So.
Yep.
Cilla's got something to live for, guys.
She does.
But Abigail, on the other hand, has not found her mission yet.
No.
She's in the infirmary.
Again, the worst place on Fort Salem.
The worst place in
the cursed
Fort
infirmary.
Salem, the cursed infirmary. Should probably have a, we should probably, that could be a great haunted house, the infirmary. Haunted infirmary. But so she's sitting there, and I like Ashley's after the storm, what she talks about with this scene and how kind of Abigail is lost and she's just kind of numb. She's looking at the scourge that got destroyed in the fight with the Camarilla, and you can just like sense she's just existing in a way right now, and she's reacting rather than being an active participant in her life. I feel like she's so overwhelmed with everything that her brain has shut down to an extent at this point. Because that's what happens. Like, if you cannot process everything that's happening, your brain will just shut down. And it'll take you to a point where it's safer for you to be numb and not really feel things. But Petra comes in to get her, and, she may be numb, but she's also still got that anger about the fact that no one's doing anything about the Camarilla, and they've attacked her again. They've attacked the Bellwether line again, and they're still getting away with it. And that the Alder and Petra are lying and saying it's the spree. So that's a big point of contention at this moment with Abigail and Petra, is the fact that the army isn't doing what Abigail thinks they should be doing. Instead, they're just blaming the spree, not going after the Camarilla. Petra tries to talk her down, but Abigail is not in the space to be talked down, and I don't think Petra is equipped to deal with this version of Abigail, because it's not what she ever expects, or it's not, it's not in her wheelhouse to deal with this kind of trauma and emotions. So Abigail says, well, maybe I shouldn't have survived because I walked into their trap. I just don't think Petra has ever seen Abigail like this or expected to see Abigail like this, because I don't know how much Petra sees Abigail as a whole person a lot of the time, rather than her daughter, who's a soldier and a bellwether, because that's what she's been conditioned to see herself. And I wonder if that's also a problem for Petra with her self-awareness in some cases. Like, she doesn't see herself as a whole person as much as she sees herself as a set of roles she has to fulfill. So I think that really takes Petra aback, and Abigail actually, I think she needed to hear that from Abigail, honestly. Abigail needed to kind of push that on her a little and make her think. But yeah, at this point, Abigail's like, why should I survive when I failed Charvel? I walked into this trap. I should have died. Like, and it's not like she's suicidal or anything. She's just thinking logically, like, I failed, so I should die. So I should have died. So it's really sad and really impactful. And I imagine it's a hard scene to get across well, but it was done with a lot of care, and I enjoy that.
Yeah, it was really, really great the way Ashley did it. I do have a question about this scene though, because do all the people in the infirmary know about this cover up? Because they're having this conversation really loudly as other people are going about their business in the infirmary. And they're talking about the Camarilla. After in the last episode, they're like, it's not the Camarilla, it's the Spree. But they're saying the word Camarilla in this infirmary while there's other people walking around. So, like, what are they doing? And is it like what happens in the infirmary stays in the infirmary? Is that like one of the rules when you go in there?
Nobody pays attention to the fixers, and the fixers know everything.
Because yeah, they're talking about they who shall not be named very loudly in this room.
See, and this is the thing that always gets me. So every time somebody needs medical attention, what do you hear? We need a fixer. So I really think that people don't think of the fixers, like they're not on the same level as like the more active, more, I guess, warlike, violent type specialties. I think people just kind of, fixers are the background in a lot of cases. And yes, they know everything. They're like, it's like, it really is like the nurses. They know everything and they gossip about everything.
That's what I'm saying. Like, there's just going to be gossip now about the Camarilla, which is the thing Alder was trying to prevent.
Oh, everyone on freaking base knows. Alder is just ridiculous in her, this is need to know. Well, guess what?
That's what I mean. Like, Petra, you're the head of intelligence. Like, you shouldn't be engaging in this conversation in public. Anyway, it doesn't make any sense. It's like Motherland, Fort Salem, silence, what's happening here. But I needed to point that out. There's literal people in the background as they're yelling about the Camarilla. So, sure. But, anyway, so after that, we go to brunch. Because
that's what you do.
That's what we do. We need to leave the infirmary, go to brunch. And Tally opens with, it's Tally and Rael eating, I guess. And Tally's like, I can't get whatever Isadora gave me out of my mouth. So let's just pause here for what was Isadora doing off screen. Because remember, Alder's like, we have a connection. I'm going to get Isadora to fix you. So Isadora, once again, gets this task that's not in her wheelhouse. So suddenly Alder's like, Isadora's an alchemist, maybe. Like, I guess. Like, she'll figure it out. So again, this is a specialty Isadora doesn't have. So I assume she had to like freestyle whatever this cure is, because I have to imagine there aren't any like documented cases of this unbiddying thing happening. And if there is, it's like case reports where there's like a handful. And if it did happen, I highly doubt anybody else had this weird connection thing with Alder, because Alder looked completely shook, like this shouldn't be happening. So this is a brand new situation in an area of area of magic, like Isadora's not versed in. So she has to come up with this cure for Tally and like become a pharmacist overnight. So it reminded me of like the witch bomb experiments when Rael was like, everything tastes weird. So I wonder if Isadora was in the lab with like a mortar and pestle, like whipping up some drugs with like a sprinkle of the mycelium. Because she's like, why not? I don't know. She's just throwing things from the necro lab into like this like a cauldron or something, and raided the witch garden, and which Alder found later. She's like, what the fuck, who killed all my plants? Was this Kalina? Before she left. But it's just like Isadora grabbing all kinds of ingredients that are somewhat magical along Fort Salem and trying to like make this drug for Tally. So that's what she was doing off screen, trying to like be an alchemist and like come up with this cure that no one has ever made before, because it's Isadora. When you have a problem we've never seen before, she's the go-to to solve it, right?
She's got the double toil and trouble going on with that boiling cauldron, and in her little white lab uniform. Just
this was a white coat Isadora scene for sure.
Yeah. Throwing stuff into this pot. You know, things are kind of having reactions. She's doing chemistry and alchemy and anything she can to sever this connection.
Yeah. She's learning alchemy on the fly, though, because she's not an alchemist. Like, I don't know why did she get these assignments?
The only reason it makes sense is because she's the one that does the biddying. So, but why is she doing the biddy stuff? That's
my question. Why was she doing the unbiddying? It doesn't seem like...
Only thing that I can think of is that she's taking life in a way from something and transferring it to something else. So it's sort of like necro something. I don't know.
Isn't that more like on par with what a healer, like a fixer, should be? Because they're
Well,
more
yes.
versed in. That's what I mean. Like, I feel like Isadora gets assignments that are not in her specialty, but because she's so fucking smart, she just figures shit out.
I think Isadora has a talent for every specialty.
Yeah, I think she's a jack of all trades, honestly. And they're just like, there's not enough necros. Be a necro.
Yeah, and I think she's also just drawn to the necro.
Potentially. It's just like Alder's constantly giving her assignments that have nothing to do with her specialty all the time, including this.
Yeah.
But yeah, because this would have been more of a healer thing, because they're used to make, because like Abigail let it drop when she was in the infirmary, I think the last episode after the Camarilla attack, that they gave her drugs. So like, wouldn't that group of people be better equipped to make drugs for Tally? But no,
it's also interesting in that, I don't know, it makes me think about the whole fixer necro opposites connection too.
Yeah, for sure.
Silla and Rael.
It could be, but I think this is more Alder being like an impossible task. Isadora will figure it out.
Oh no, it is.
She does it all the time.
It just makes me think about that for some reason.
So anyway, so off screen, Isadora made some drugs for Tally, and it tastes weird, kind of like the mycelium tastes weird for Rael. But Rael's like, hey, I know it tastes weird, but at least you can sleep without your dreams now. And Tally is like, yeah, I guess, but like a part of me didn't want to take it, and the other part just wanted peace, but whatever. Either way, Alder is lying her ass off, and I'm really annoyed. And Tally mentions like she's like, I saw Alder's face, and she wasn't surprised when those rebels killed themselves. Like, she looked satisfied. And satisfied is a very interesting and specific word. So it was like, it wasn't just that like Alder was was on the fly being like, well, I guess I'll kill these people. She was like relieved that they were killing themselves. So like, again, Alder just, why? But like, it makes sense. Like, if I were Nicta and I saw this, like what Tally saw, somebody stole my work to kill witches that surrendered and then looked satisfied that that's what was happening, like I'd be livid too. So it just adds to the Alder, what the actual fuck.
It does.
And then Abigail joins them. Oh, did you have more to say on that?
No, go for it.
And then Abigail joins them, and they get on the topic of Samhain, which is happening because it's October, everyone. And they mention that there's this dinner happening tonight where you eat the meal backwards in complete silence, and there's tables with black roses and black chairs for the dead to join them. And they talk a little bit about how each of them kind of, well, mostly Rael, how they kind of like celebrated Samhain in their respective parts of the world. And Rael mentions that in the session, like her parents weren't like big on it. Like they did Halloween, like the civilians did, but which makes sense because in the session, it almost seems like witch culture isn't predominant in any kind of way. It's just like part of the amalgamation of cultures happening there. And so Rael had this kind of like childhood, or at least affiliation with holidays, where it was more so she got like a mixture of like civilian holidays and without like the emphasis on the witch ones, which I find interesting because I don't know what was going on in the matrifocal compound here, but it seems like Abigail was more like traditional witch. Rael was like this mixture of stuff. And then like Tally was, I don't know what they were doing for this holiday because Gregoria interrupts and we never find out. And he's there to check in on Bells. And he's like, well, I'm really sorry about what happened. And Abigail's like, whatever. Yeah, they attacked me again. Like, whatever. I'm over it. JK. And he's like, no, there was like an attack in India for a government train. Where isn't that where Adil went? Because him and Adil are besties. So he's worried for Adil. And then Abigail's like, oh, fuck. And so she starts like having flashes of like the horrible memories she has with like the Camarilla butchering people she loves and interlaced with happy memories with Adil. And he keeps going, well, like, it's been confirmed that General Sharma's dead, which, no, like, R.I.P. Queen. I'm so sad that has been confirmed. But that's the only death we know of at this point. And Abigail just, like, you see her just, like, lose all of her steam. And she's like, this stuff with the Camarilla is never going to stop. It's never going to stop. And she just seems very defeated.
Yes, she does, which is very sad. R.I.P. for everything. I do want to go back to the Samhain discussion.
Do it.
So, if you would like a very brief rundown on the Samhain tradition. So, this is the new year for the ancient Celts, the end of summer and beginning of the harvest. Life at that time would have been agrarian and revolving around farming and getting the crops in. Winter would have been associated with death because that's when, everything around you naturally dies as far as the plant life and is concerned, and animals hibernate and it's a harder time to find food. So they would celebrate this with a bonfire and what was called a dumb supper, which is what Tally mentions in the episode. It's literally just a meal they eat backwards, where they reserve places for the dead spirits to visit them. And it's held in complete silence. And this tradition started actually in the Middle Ages. So the ancient Celts in the Middle Ages were the ones that came up with this. And then after, when Christianity started to spread around, they tried to take this holiday and move it a couple of times and change it into something that fit within the Christian theology, but it got moved right on back to where it was, and this is where you get like All Saints Day. So it's literally a celebration of ancestors and the death and the fact that you get to commune with the dead on that day.
Yes.
And it's still observed by modern pagans.
Yeah, so fun little history lesson and very, very relevant for the remainder of this episode.
Mm-hmm.
So thank you for that.
Anytime. Do you have anything else to say about poor General Sharma?
R.I.P. Queen.
R.I.P. Queen Sharma.
Mm-hmm.
All right, so back to Alder and a little bit of Petra. Isadora's on her way out to India to collect samples because, once again,
she's so fucking busy. Like, this is what I mean. All the emergencies get delegated to her. She's just, but this one is in her wheelhouse because it's about dead people. So she's probably jumping for joy about this. She's like, yes, necro work, fucking finally. Like, yes, let's go. I'm already, my bag's packed. Let's get out of here.
And I get to go to India. So.
Jesus Christ.
But there's a little bit of a hitch for Petra and Alder because the Indian military is placing the blame for this attack directly on the Camarilla. So apparently the Hague is not keeping their promise to keep things quiet on the Camarilla front, which is not surprising. But you do see that they have the tapes that the Camarilla have been using in the schools to find witches when they're, children. And they talk about how Silver has postponed the testing center rollout because some of the states are not on board with this. And we know Silver has his own agenda, so he's probably behind all of this anyway. But Alder tells Petra to get Silver up to speed on what's going on with the whole world thing, like what's going on in the world, because President Wade is still under the weather, quote unquote. And Petra kind of drives this point, she's like, really now? I wonder why that is. Alder?
Mm-hmm.
Alder's been messing around in Wade's head too much.
I mean, was that Alder screwing with Wade, or is that the Camarilla screwing with Wade? Because, the one who said, under the weather, that was the language that VP Silver used.
That's true. So it could be that...
I don't think that was Alder. I think this is the Camarilla manipulating the president still.
I think they're just going to offer.
I definitely think she's in danger because the actress is killing it on Abbott Elementary right now. She's not coming back. So I think Wade's in danger for lots of reasons. But I think this is highlighting that the Camarilla is influencing, the highest level of the United States government, because this is VP Silver's exact language.
Yeah, I just don't think we're gonna see. I don't think we're gonna see Wade again. Like she's gonna die in mysterious circumstances or non-mysterious for what they report.
Yeah. So after that, I also love in the scene that Alder shares whiskey with Petra, and there's no sass. She's just like, here, like everything's
We
fucked.
both need this.
Everything's
The
fucked.
world is crumbling.
Yeah.
The Camarilla are here. Let's have some whiskey. I'm
Right.
just surprised that there's not a phonograph playing in the background.
She doesn't. Well, Petra did not come in there with radiating sapphic energy, so like, why would she
That's
set the
true.
mood?
It only
Tally did.
comes out for the.
But there was no like stealing Petra's whiskey. And like it was a
Yeah.
nice whiskey sharing moment between them.
Well, she's on the job now. It's not after hours, so she can't be having the music on anyway.
Exactly. So I like that little touch between
I
the two
do
of them.
think there's enough sapphic vapors given off by that whole conversation with Tally to last that long, though.
Yeah, so maybe Alder is still feeling that. But that's not what's happening in the scene.
No, it's not.
It's more like they're chilling
Business
finally.
is chilling. Business and chilling.
Exactly. And so after that, we head over to Justine and Amelia walking in the suburbs, and they're sharing an umbrella, and it's so cute.
It's so cute.
It's
This is
so
like one of
cute.
the best scenes.
And Anacostia in her Amelia cosplay is just like, and there's like kids running around and stuff because now it's Saturday, I guess. We're just jumping time and not explaining. So it's Saturday, I guess, Halloween. And Anacostia makes the comment, civilians and their mysterious customs. Because remember, Anacostia was the base brat, so she just grew up in witch culture. And probably this is her first Halloween, which is kind of cute when you think about it. So Silla is looking at the kids and she's like, well, I think it looks like fun. And it's kind of sad when you think about this line because I imagine that like Silla probably knew about these customs because she was dodging around the country, but I don't think she was really able to participate in any of this.
No, she just got to watch.
She had to watch. So there's like definite sadness in her voice. So like, again, just highlighting Silla was really robbed of childhood when you think about it.
She was robbed of life.
Yeah, for real. And then they get on very cute quarter horn banter where they start talking about like sharing clothes and like they're complimenting each other. And it's very sweet. And so they're obviously bonding on a much deeper level aside from like the mission stuff. So it's very cute. And they keep bantering until they arrive at Bonnie and Shane's. And Bonnie comes out of the house with Brianna, who's her daughter, who's dressed like a little angel with a unicorn horn. Which, what is this outfit? What is this costume?
But you know how kids are. They're like, I want to be a unicorn angel. And then Bonnie's like, okay, sure, you can be whatever you want, honey. Yeah. That's how that happened.
I think so. And I think it's supposed to highlight, again, the perception her parents have of their child. It's like little angel, she's all innocent, but she's unique, like a unicorn. Like, that's why you can't have our daughter. So I think that's what that's trying to say. And also, it's the hint that Brianna loves unicorns, which we'll see later. And Brianna's all excited when she sees Silla, and she like bounces up to her, and she's like, "Trick or treat, Justine!" And Justine gets into character. She's like, "Oh, I'm sorry, I don't have any candy. All I have are witch fingers," and she starts tickling her, and it's super cute. And it shows like Silla is very playful because again, she didn't have a childhood, so it's cute that she gets to like enact some of her childhood stuff out and shows that she's very good with kids, which is
I think that Silla loves kids.
Probably, yeah. I mean,
and the everything that, you know, like you said, she didn't get a childhood, so she just sees so much fun in being, you know, childlike and having that. You just see it later on and as well, just tiny glimpses. But yeah. I loved that she got to interact with Brianna.
Yeah, it was really sweet. I mean, because again, it's sad because she didn't have a normal childhood like Brianna did, and so it's cute to see her engage.
And also hilarious that the scariest thing she could come up with witch fingers.
I mean, it's Halloween, and witches are scary, and to this particular family. Yeah. So I get why she did it.
It's very in character.
It's very Silla too, because she's like, "You're scared of witches. Witches aren't that scary. Look, witch fingers." Anyway, so there's some irony there.
I love it.
And while this is all happening, Shane, unfortunately, is here. And he comes out of the house to take Amelia and Justine to the party and mentions Bonnie isn't going because she's taking Brianna trick-or-treating. And when he mansplains this, like, Bonnie doesn't fully smile. She's like, yeah. Because Shane says mom duties. And like, I just want to slap this man for like all the misogyny he radiates all the time. And I get the impression from the way they're playing this that like going to this Camarilla party they're about to go to was never an option for Bonnie because Shane said so. So it's kind of fucked up because for a lot of reasons, but really he's depriving Bonnie of a night with her friends, Justine and Amelia. So it's really fucked up. But whatever. While the mansplaining is happening, Brianna asks if her mom, I think, if Tiffany can come with them. So remember, Tiffany was the newly discovered witch, her friend who, they were all worried about last time. And Shane answers, well, Tiffany's still on vacation, which gave me vibes when I first listened to this of like, well, President Wade has a bug. And it gave me the vibe of like parents explaining to a child when their pet dies. They're like, well, Tiffany's on a farm playing with other witch kids right now. And it's like, sure, Shane, Tiffany's on vacation. Sure. And Shane then mansplains how Bonnie is going to do her mom duties and take Brianna trick-or-treating. And he's like, 1 block. Okay. So like, what the fuck? Like, he's so controlling. I can't stand it. But it's like, not only does Bonnie not get to go hang out with her friends and get dressed up, she has to take the daughter trick-or-treating and they only get to go 1 block. Like, what even is that? Like, just buy your own kid candy? Like, this is dumb. And they part ways after that.
Yeah.
And he's just so controlling. I can't stand it.
He is in every way, shape, and form the exact type of person that would be in the Not Our Daughters movement leadership. He just personifies that grossness, with the misogyny and the witch hating, and oh my gosh, it's like it's that guy that's your super duper conservative homophobic uncle that you hope never comes to holidays because there's too much liberalness and gayness going on there. Like, you hope they boycott the family reunion because of it. But he's also a very dangerous individual because of his ambition to get higher in the movement. So,
for sure. And I agree with all of that. And I think it's important to pay attention to Bonnie in this scene because let's call back to Willa and Cilla's conversation. Like, Bonnie's not living her life. She's being controlled by Shane right now. Yeah. So here's another person who's trapped, basically.
Bonnie strikes me as someone who was just that really sweet and somewhat innocent woman who fell into this relationship with Shane without realizing how absolutely toxic he was and the relationship was, because she likes to see the good in everyone. And therefore, she's got herself into a position that's impossible for her to really escape.
Yeah. Because she has a daughter now. She has to do what's right for her daughter. Like, you saw it in a couple episodes ago when it might have been the last one where Silla was like, well, what if Brianna was a witch? And like, Bonnie freezes because she knows her husband would like kill their daughter. Like, so yeah, I think she's in this impossible situation, truly. And I think their relationship probably progressed where Shane would like make offhanded comments and Bonnie's like, that's weird, but he's mostly good. But then once he started getting in with these Camarilla people, he started getting more empowered to be more extreme with his ridiculousness. And he probably projected that all onto her and became more controlling with her over time because now he's emboldened by this other group of men who are doing this. So poor Bonnie. But again, this is a person who's not living, right? So that's what this is.
He's a man who needs that power imbalance in his relationship to feel like he has any kind of control in life. Yep. And it's incredibly sad and tragic and absolutely disgusting. So, fuck off, Shane.
Yeah, fuck off, Shane.
Next, we're going to go to Abigail and her sparring time with the instructor, which is not going so well.
No, she's just getting triggered.
Yeah. She's basically, as she's sparring, she's having these flashbacks to the Camarilla attack. And the instructor keeps urging her on and saying you can do better. Like, what the hell, basically, what the hell's wrong with you, cadet? You're always good at hand to hand, and right now you're sucking. So get your head in the game. But Abigail's head is constantly flashing back to all the trauma she's experienced in the last season, and it's just not going well for her. She has no interest in this. This isn't what she should be doing in her mind. This is useless because it's not fighting the Camarilla. So she literally taps out, which Abigail never does. And during this whole like sparring match, Tally and Rael are talking in the background, and Tally suggesting that they should go home with Abigail for break because she's a little fragile and they need to look after her.
Mm-hmm.
So that's the plan, shall we say. Once Abigail taps out, she leaves the place where they're doing hand to hand and walks outside. Rael and Tally follow her and kind of try to calm her down, and they're like, sit down, you need to chill. And Abigail is like, we've moved beyond sparring. And they can see that she's upset at this point and going through it. And Rael brings up the whole, well, we should go home with you. And then Abigail says, you won't be safe there. We won't be safe anywhere. So she's really struggling with the fact that everyone is trying to calm her down in the moment and not focusing on the threat. So she's like, we need to eliminate the threat, not just sit here and try to be zen and calm and, recover or anything. So Tally is reassuring her, saying, we fought them off before, we'll do it again. And during this conversation, a bunch of cadets are coming along behind them and walking past them. They're in the front. There's a line of two cadets abreast, and they all have torches, these big torches. So there are other cadets walking along behind them. And that's when we see Gregorio is with them, and he motions for them to be quiet and follow the whole procession. And you get this really ominous but cool music that comes in. So it's like the Samhain music is coming. I love it.
Mm-hmm.
It gives me super spooky vibes, and I'm here for it. So it all, like, every time I think of All Hallows Eve, the traditional like way that we celebrated in the United States, it's very I think of the Headless Horseman, that whole story, and the animated version of it.
Mm-hmm.
Gives me this nostalgia, and this music did the same thing. It just gives me this nostalgia for Halloween in your childhood type, that kind of when it was like super magical. And I don't know, I just love this episode for that reason as well.
Yeah, it's really fun, and I like that you get to see like two sides of how this particular day is, well, I guess three technically, of how this holiday is celebrated amongst different groups in this world, which is interesting because you don't always get to see that. Anytime you see like Halloween, it's usually like, or this day, it's usually like the Halloween version. You don't get to see Samhain or like creepy Camarilla shit. Like, we can see multiple variations of quote unquote celebrating this day.
Because Samhain is the root of Halloween, so you're seeing the ancient version, the witches' ancient version, their modern version of the ancient Samhain, and you're also seeing how it evolved amongst civilians. So it's really cool.
It's very cool. More like world building stuff, which is cool. Other things I just wanted to point out about the scene, I do love that after Abigail gets like super triggered, the unit starts using like pet names for her. Like they say Abby and Abs, which is really sweet. And it goes to show like their level of affection they have for each other. And then
absolutely.
Yeah, and then I don't understand why the unit wasn't invited to this Samhain ritual. Because like the coven marches out. And like they weren't invited to this.
Yeah, what the hell?
Right, they weren't
I've
in the
always
training
wondered
room.
that.
Like, why the fuck weren't they invited to this?
Because Gregorio is like, shh.
Yeah, he's like, shh, get in this line. But it's like, why the fuck weren't they told about this? Like, what the fuck was that? It was really weird.
It's like this. Why this? Who else? Because there were other people in that hand to hand with them,
right? What is
the deal?
What the fuck?
Is it because
weird.
they walked out and they were at the last minute? Everybody's like, okay, it's Samhain time,
but like,
and they weren't there for the memo. I don't know.
Okay, then that would mean that they weren't. Maybe that group stopped by the training room and then was like, "Oh, the unit's not here. Whatever, let's just leave." Like they weren't coming to get them; they just happened to find them, which makes this really fucking weird.
It's so weird.
It's
I'm
so
like,
weird.
why? Like,
Why?
I get the whole like spooky procession thing. That was cool, but can we not have a reason? Like why this is how it happened?
Right. It reads like they were excluded and they joined because the group happened to walk past them. Like not like they needed them. Like it's really weird.
It would also wouldn't they know? Since Abigail knows all about all the Samhain rituals,
right?
Why wouldn't she know that this was going to happen? I mean, I know she doesn't care about that right now, but still.
But still, they could have explained this when they were having brunch earlier and talking about this holiday. And then why are they starting this procession with torches now? It's still daytime. I don't understand that either. Like the timing doesn't make sense.
Nicole, I have questions.
Yeah, I have actual questions about this because it's not like it's close to dark, because why the fuck were they training then so close to dark? It doesn't make what time is it? It makes no sense.
Exactly.
Like how long are they marching is my question, because they march and like it gets gradually darker, but this unit like coven thing is still marching around Fort Salem. Like what is the time elapse here? It's very strange.
They took a 3-mile hike with torches.
I guess. Like it's so weird.
Can I Man, listen. I have so many questions about like a lot of this, and I just remembered one and then it like flew out of my brain as soon as I got it. And I'm very upset about that because I'm tired of that happening to me. But it was something about this that we're talking about, how people don't seem to know what the hell's going on at any given time. The unit doesn't seem to know what's going on around them at any given time.
Yeah, I guess. It doesn't make sense. So I'm just chalking this up to like Motherland for Salem
no,
science.
I remembered. The only thing, to me, this feels like there's a missing scene that they cut.
Maybe.
Or part of a scene that we didn't get the whole of. Because I feel like there could have easily been a scene where this was explained in a way.
It still doesn't explain why the coven didn't get them. And they just, again, they joined the coven because they happened to walk past them. It doesn't explain that.
I just want to know, is there a scene that got cut for a time / it didn't fit in, but this makes it even more awkward? Can we talk about that, please?
Yeah, so it's Motherland for Salem science, where it somehow makes sense, but it doesn't make sense. So whatever.
We're going to let it go.
It's happening. So they're marching. It's daytime. Then we cut over to Alder, close to dusk, because like now the sun is starting to set. Alder's in front of a bonfire with the biddies, and they're gleefully burning the Camarilla tapes from the auditory "Are You a Witch" test. And it's almost like some cleansing ritual for Alder. So I think there's like some symbolism going on here where she's like getting rid of the evil, and like fire means rebirth. And so it's like birth of a new era for like the witches fight against the Camarilla thing. And Alder's like, yes, burning this evil. And she's like, Samhain begins. And she's just looking out to the fields of Fort Salem. And now we see from Alder's perspective that there's multiple bonfires all over the fields of Fort Salem. And that's what Alder and the biddies are up to, in case you're wondering.
Yeah. I want to know if this is, what do they do every year for Samhain? Do Alder and the biddies just gather around the bonfire and sing Kumbaya or burn stuff or talk about, who won biddy chess last night? I don't know.
Yeah. I don't know. Honoring the dead. Does Sarah have her own ritual with like her all the fallen that she's seen? I don't even know what
I
Samhain's
could see
like
her
for
reading
Alder.
from her own journals to the biddies.
Yeah, maybe. I don't know. That's a good question. If anyone has any ideas, let us know.
Yeah, there's a good one. Let us know what you think the biddies and Alder get up to every Samhain.
Yeah.
But yeah, so this is, we see, like you mentioned, all of the different bonfires. It's dark now, miraculously. Somehow. Dark outside, even though we just marched out in the light, as Theora mentioned.
Yes.
And
How long was this march?
Exactly. It's dark now, and the cadets march up to. There's like this series of bonfires around this area, and their coven. There's already part of their coven there, including M, who's like waiting to commence the ceremony. And so the unit gets dropped off, plus Gregorio, and the torchbearers light their fire and then move on. So M starts everything off by saying, Samhain tradition, cadets, for the veil is thin. Tonight we wake the dead as our ancestors have done for centuries. So M walks up to Rael and grabs her wrist and then cuts her palm suddenly, which I'm like not okay with.
Consent, people. Consent is a thing. Consent is a thing.
Like, I get that was like, just let Rael cut herself. Somebody stop cutting Rael. So Rael's had her consent taken away like every step of this freaking way. This show, the entire show. So then everyone steps forward and drips their blood onto the bonfire. So I'm imagining this is going to symbolize them sacrificing. It's like, so when the ancient Celts were doing this, they would sacrifice a cow to, you know, to the dead, etc. And I imagine this is their sacrifice to get things rolling, because everything needs a sacrifice and power, whatever. And blood is like the thing. So then M goes on to explain this is the defending of the hearth, and gives them a little history lesson about Commodore Hastings during the French and Indian War. And Tally fills in the blank, specifically the Battle of Latuque, where this regiment was sequestered in the forest in wintertime. And as the temperatures dropped, they've been trying not to light a fire because it would give away their position, but it got so cold that they gave in and they lit one fire, which proved fatal because no one survived. And that means that the ghostly regiment wanders these woods, desperate to extinguish the flame that led to their death. But the coven's job is to keep the fire burning until the last stroke of midnight. And you kind of hear, during this M telling this whole story, you hear the gradual like milling around of horses and neighing, and like basically the ghosts gathering to try to extinguish the fire. It's like kind of like the sounds of battle, I think, is what the subtitles or the closed caption says.
Yes.
If the cadets win and keep the fire burning, they get to speak to the dead witch of their choosing. So that's the prize. And in After the Storm, it's mentioned that this whole thing is a team building exercise that Alder and the soldiers Alder and her leadership came up with forever ago for the cadets. So they're kind of using the fact that they have these ghosts milling around the property on Samhain that want to extinguish this flame, the traditional Samhain bonfire, because it is a tradition, like it's tradition on Samhain to have a bonfire. And so Alder is using this whole ghost, just like Alder does with everything, using it to her and the army's advantage to form a team building exercise, which I actually think is kind of cool. So that's why this exists.
Yeah, very cool. Very fun way to build in witch lore, holidays, and get that coven to bond with each other. Because, yeah, what a bonding exercise, truly.
Mm-hmm.
So while they're bonding, or about to start bonding, Justine and Justine and Amelia.
I knew one of us was going to do that at some point.
It's hard. They arrive at the Camarilla party, which is in this ornate grand hall lined with candles, and this place immediately gave me like Phantom of the Opera vibes.
Which was opera, was what Elliot mentioned in the After the Storm.
Oh, it's definitely an opera house. But like the minute I was like, this looks like the Phantom of the Opera, because there are scenes in the play with like a ton of candles, and it looks the hall looks just like it with the chandelier and all that stuff. So I was like, okay, this is gonna be bad. So as they're walking in, Silla decides to test if the Camarilla have tech to stop work by doing a wind strike. So she chooses to do this while she's on full display out in the open. There are people filing in behind her and can see her with their own eyes. So I have to imagine Silla must be super confident they have these work silencers, because if it didn't work, she would have windstruck a bunch of candles where everyone can see and started a giant fire. So Amalia, dear, if you're listening to this, what on earth was Silla's plan if the wind strike worked? Like,
that's a good question.
What was her plan? What were you gonna do if it worked?
I guess it would just blown the candle out.
No, but like a wind strike has a particular radius. Like, it would have caused damage. And then you just outed yourself as a witch to the Camarilla. Like, come on now. Like, what happened if it worked?
I love that her explanation of this whole part is, Silla's not subtle. And I'm like, but come on.
Subtle is not the right word. This was just dumb. And Silla's not dumb. So like, she must have been so confident that there were silencers.
She must have.
Because like, what the fuck? And my other question too, aside from like, what the fuck was Silla gonna do if it didn't work, was what would Anacostia do if the wind strike worked? Would like Anacostia just be ride or die, or would she be so committed to being Amelia that she'd be like, oh my god, she's a witch? like, what was Anacostia's move? Like,
can you imagine that?
I think Silla was like, yeah, when we get in there, I'm gonna wind strike. I think she just did it.
She just did it.
Imagine if it worked. And then Anacostia's like, what the fuck, girl? What the fuck?
And Justine is just sitting there like, I don't know. What was that?
Right.
There must be something afoot here.
Right. It doesn't make any... This is like my second favorite instance of Silla just doing stuff, and she clearly didn't think it through. Because like, you obviously didn't think this through at all. Because not only can they see you do the wind strike motion because they have eyes and there's people behind you, but like, if it didn't work... You just outed yourself.
Well, you still hear the visible, you still hear the audible sound of her making the seed sound.
That's what I mean.
Yeah.
You're on display in a room full of Camarilla people. They can see you and you're doing this. Like, it doesn't make sense. I feel like there's other work you could have done that was subtler to test this, but we're going with a wind strike. Anyway, the bottom line is they can't use work here. So... Anyway, they can't do work.
They're going to have to improvise.
They're going to have to improvise and do not work. And so 2 seconds later, after this discovery via wind striking, Shane rolls up. So like, Shane could have seen them, but whatever. Motherland, for Tale of Science in this episode. And Shane's like, if tonight goes well, we'll be set. These people, so all these Camarilla people, they take care of their own. Investment funds, private schools, real estate, plenty of cops and judges in their pockets. So all confirmation of what we were speculating in the last episode. This group has been infiltrating everything in America, and they have a bunch of power and money, and they're just taking over bedrock institutions one by one right now and extending their influence literally everywhere and in the pockets of very wealthy and powerful people. And the witches get all that, and they look super uncomfortable, and they're like, great, this is worse than we thought. And so Anacostia pivots the conversation to Bonnie, and she's like, well, too bad your wife is missing out on all of this because, yeah, I feel like your wife should be here, but whatever. And Shane's like, no, Bonnie's not cut out for this 2 week. Why are you
Once
together?
again?
Why are you together then, Shane? You trapped your poor wife in this marriage. Just justice for Bonnie is what I'm saying. But he keeps going, and he's like, you two, though, you got what it takes to bring a world about with no witches. And this is just telling me he's a terrible judge of character because their spy skills are terrible. And obviously they fooled him with their mediocre skills. And he's like, you guys are great though. It's like, come on now.
So it's like he's got the misogyny on one side, and then he's got but these women, they're strong enough to get the job done. I mean, still not strong as me, but it's like, bro, you're the dumbest person here. I mean, you're on the dumb level below what Scylla tried to do to prove that their work wouldn't.
I know. Like, you just saw Willa, you just saw Scylla try to wind strike some candles, and you're like, you guys are great. It's like, they're not even good spies. And anyway, terrible judge of character. That's him. Full of misogyny. And the girls are just like, ha ha, like stage laughing at this comment. And Anacostia's like, light him up. And then Scylla whips out her misandry to counteract the misogyny and is like, I have a lighter. And I love this line and the way she delivers it because she in this moment clearly wants to do violence to this man, and I want to see it.
Exactly. And the way that she says, I have a lighter. Oh, Amalia. 5 points.
The misandry to counteract the misogyny, and I like to see it. And yes, girl, I want to see you do violence to these gross men. So after this light 'em up line and etc., they grab some white Phantom of the Opera masks and walk into the opera house. And Scylla notes the faces here of the people who, I guess, aren't wearing masks, because most of them are wearing masks. I don't know what she's talking about, but I guess she notes the people here are not the same ones from the Not Our Daughters movement. And she's like, well, Shane, how did you get an invite then? Since this is obviously a different, more sophisticated crowd than like the angry mob we were just at last time. And Shane comments, he brought a gift, and you'll see soon enough what it is. And in my mind, I'm like, oh, it's the child on the farm. It's like, come on now. Who went on vacation. And Anacostia and Silla start chatting after Shane bounces away to go do whatever he's doing. And they reveal that the reason they're here is to take the Exarch's face. And so that's like the leader of this group, I guess. And they're like, well, it's going to be really difficult to do that, to take a face, because everybody's got masks on. And Silla counters the line from earlier, we'll improvise. And the scene ends.
Yeah, So I kind of think the Exarch is, if you think about there are different Camarilla groups around, sort of like the spree cells, but more organized, obviously, and all connected to a central power structure. The Exarch would be like the regional leader in my mind.
Yeah, and basically it's an interesting word, and it makes sense based on what we've seen so far of them. A lot of their imagery or totems or whatever are like crosses, so linked to Christianity. And basically Exarch comes from like a Orthodox church language. It's like a bishop in a lower rank kind of thing. So it's kind of like a governor. So what you're saying. So this isn't like the head top, like the president of the organization. This is a governor. So this is somebody like below the direct leader. So it's somebody, it's the person we've seen. This Exarch is going to be like the highest up ranking in the Camarilla we've come to see so far, but it's not the person at the top, basically.
Precisely.
Yeah, and so I love that they use that type of word, because again, it's reinforcing that this group is very much tied to Christianity, so another ancient enemy of witches in general.
Yep. So while everyone's preparing to get their Phantom of the Opera on, back at Fort Salem, the Sekhmet bonfire is ready to be attacked, basically. So we've got all this mist, and the ghosts are approaching. But before the fun starts, Tally asks who Abigail wants to talk to, and Abigail kind of returns the question. So Abigail goes into, well, there's any number of people I can talk to because there's so many dead bellwethers. So she's kind of pointing out, well, I've got my pick of bellwethers to choose from. And Tally is like, I'm sorry. And she's like, no, it's just the truth. So at this point, she's not looking for the sympathy. She's just pointing out, yeah, like freaking so many dead relatives. But we all know who she's going to freaking call on. The person whose death has traumatized her the most and recently. So Tally says she's going to talk to Valda Esterbrook, who was the head of the rebels in Liberia, because she wants to get more answers, which makes a lot of sense for Tally's storyline at the moment. And of course, Rael is going to call her mom. That's a big duh. Who else is she going to call? She thinks Will is dead. So it's the obvious choice. And M points out to them that just one arrow from the ghost army will douse the flame, and that's what they need to do, is to keep these arrows from hitting the flame. So that's pretty much the gist of that. See, in this part of the episode, we're having very quick scenes back and forth between the opera house and the bonfire. So
Yes. And so, meanwhile, back at the opera, Silla and Anacostia are making their way down the stairs. Making their way downtown. They're making their way down the staircase into the opera hall. So that's where like the stage is and where like the show is about to begin. And they stop on the balcony and the camera pans to a speaker system and we hear a ringing noise. So it indicates that like the way they're stopping the witches' work with that like whatever work, that vocal work or whatever they're doing, it's being broadcasted into the room from somewhere else. And at this in center stage, there's a dude in a white suit and a red mask, and he approaches. So he's the only one with a red mask, so this is probably our Exarch, because everybody else has got the white fin and the upper ones. And the dude takes off the mask, and it's that bald police sergeant from the mob in the last episode. So here's our Exarch. He's a cop. And Anacostia and Cilla, now at this point, have found their mark, and they need to figure out how to get close enough to him. But he's on the stage giving a speech. And he indicates a couple of key things from the speech. The only people in the room right now, so the only people in this opera house are the Camarilla, because he asked the staff asked the staff to arrive at the opera hall later. So that's important. So something weird's about to go down that's ritualistic and only for Camarilla eyes. And they have enough influence to be like, we're going to take over this opera hall, which are usually super expensive and like hoity-toity kind of people own. And they're like, your staff can't come in here till later. So that's significant. And he's going on about this private show. It's for their entertainment. And it's a special night, reinstating a long-held ritual performed by their ancestors on All Hallows Eve. So we're getting a glimpse into how the Camarilla celebrate Samhain / All Hallows Eve, like in this ritual that no one else is allowed to see, apparently. So I'm reinforcing the Camarilla culture is gross. But also, I thought about this, and then Elliot confirms it in the After the Storm that like because it's happening on Samhain and the Camarilla, which is a Christian group, as we see, are doing a ritual on a night that's sacred to witches. It's like I don't know. It's like dishonoring the witches, kind of a way, and making a mockery. It's making a mockery of a holiday that's sacred to witches. So they're purposely doing this like petty ritual that's going to counteract a sacred holiday for the witches. So this is pettiness from the Camarilla, and they've been doing it for centuries, apparently.
That's on brand.
Yep. So obviously this isn't going to be something good.
But yeah, back and forth Salem, where there's not a bunch of arseholes planning something horrible. Arrows are flying in from everywhere, and the Covenant's kind of having a hard time keeping up with defeating all of the onslaught. But Gregorio jumps in front of an arrow to save Tally, which is very much on brand for him, because I feel like he's a protector and a very caring individual. So they're really trying to set this thing up with Tally and Gregorio, and it's very evident in this episode.
Oh yeah,
considering their interactions. So M yells the one phrase that gets to me sometimes: "We need a fixer! Call her! We need a fixer!" So at first Rael doesn't hear, but M yells it again, and then Rael goes to fix them, and I just want to say that this is like one of the hottest things in the entire episode is Rael just breaking that arrow off, pulling it out, and it's just I don't know what it is about it, but she does it so confidently that it's like she's done it before, and I'm like, girl, where have you ever had someone pierced with an arrow that you had to fix? Like, and I guess it's back in, maybe in the session somebody was hunting with arrow, like bow hunting season or something.
Or maybe when they're doing their war college specific training, like Rael in fixer lessons is learning more war type of healing. So they get shot with an arrow and you have to break it. And like, this is how you have to maneuver it so you don't kill them before you can fix them. So,
yeah.
But I like the session one because honestly, that checks out. Rogue bow hunters.
Right. Some dumb people out in the forest. But so yeah, she starts fixing Gregorio, and it takes a hot minute. So we go back to the opera.
We sure do. And I love in that scene though that Gregorio is such a ride or die.
He is.
Like he took the arrow,
He's my second favorite man.
Papa Collar's number one.
Yeah, always number one, Papa Collar.
Yeah, I do love Gregorio. And I love that they took the time to make him a full character. Like you see like his bravery and stuff in that little scene. So I love it. But yes, meanwhile, back at the opera, the Exarch is still waxing poetic about the special night while these violins are playing. And when he's done, we hear a little girl crying. And then they bring very scared little Tiffany into the room. And she's wearing a white frock, like something Sarah Alder wore back in the day. Again, highlighting that this ritual started in ancient times and apparently we're cosplaying that as well.
And it gives me Crucible vibes, and yes. I'm not here for it.
Right. Neither is Tiffany or any of the witches in the room. And poor little Tiffany is being led to center stage where the Exarch is. And the Exarch is super thrilled because, quote, we are about to rid the world of some evil. And I was like, oh, no, here we are. And Silla says, that psychopath. And ding, yes, this is psychotic. And Anacostia does some quick math. And she's like, oh, Tiffany's the gift from Shane. Yeah, so Shane kidnapped a child. So that's where he's at. Wonderful. And the Exarch is still up there with little Tiffany, and he pulls this cloth down to reveal a wooden gallows and says, tonight we offer up a witch. And the crowd very grossly applauds this. And I love the symbolism here because everybody in this room is wearing a mask. So it's like, yeah, you guys are all real tough behind your masks where no one can see your identity. So it's like a group of cowards basically doing this. And we'll see that they are in fact cowards when things go to hell later. So I love that. That's who these people are. And Anacostia is like, enough of this. I'm going to go cut this power so we can do work. So you, Silla, you got to get the girl out. Like, we got to get moving. This just got real. And a goon notices Anacostia exiting stage left, and he follows her. And Silla starts creeping down the staircase to get closer to the stage. And the Exarch places this hook that's connected to the gallows by a tether. And he places it in between the ropes, tying Tiffany's hands together. And it starts lifting up her arms over her head to the point where she's standing on her little tippy toes. So it's like this torture pose. And Silla starts inching closer, like this angry mama bear about to strike to protect her cub, and it rudely cuts away.
But this whole thing, as soon as I saw this for the first time, I realized what was about to happen, and I was like, oh my God, they're really going there. They're really going there. Like, this just got so dark. This is like the darkest we've gotten. I mean, I know we've had torture scenes, but this shit's dark.
But like, again, it just highlights the disassociation, which is not human. Even children. It's like, we're protecting our daughters, but this girl is an abomination and not even human, so let's kill her. That's where we're at.
It's not a person.
Yeah.
Oh my God, it really just hammers home the
ideology.
Absolute.
This is the ideology.
Yes. How horrifying.
Yeah,
Ugh,
and what's
gross.
horrifying is that human beings do this shit in real life.
Yeah,
Like,
all the
this
like
isn't
this is not
new.
new.
This is not new.
This is it's not uncommon and it's not new. Like it's happened in every culture in some way, shape, or form since I believe the beginning of human habitation of the earth. We've been doing awful things to one another.
Including two children. Like, America
Mm-hmm.
was kidnapping children recently and putting
Yeah,
them in camps. So, like,
exactly.
it's not like this isn't happening in real life. This still happens where it's like, wow. But again, it's that divorcing of, like, you're so entrenched in this
Mm-hmm.
hatred that you can't see the enemy as humans. And this is what happens. It's like, well, let's kill a kid because
Mm-hmm.
it's not a kid, it's a witch. This is evil. Like, we're ridding evil of the world. And so
Yep.
they have this faux moral high ground that excuses the fact that they're applauding behind their masks that they're going to kill a child. That's
Yes.
where we're at.
And I like that Demetria points out in After the Storm that she doesn't think that Anacostia would have known what to do if she was on her own in the situation, and that
Who
she needed
would?
Silla and Silla needed her. So it really was a cool comment to bring home the fact that they needed each other for these missions.
I mean, particularly in this scenario, you need a partner. There's no way one person was going to accomplish this unless you came in with a giant machine gun under your dress, like, which we've never seen machine guns in this because guns don't kill people. Witches with guns kill people. But like, yeah, there's no way one person was going to save Tiffany. There wouldn't be time. There's no way
Nope.
unless Exarch just waxed poetic for like an hour. Like, there's no way.
Mm-hmm.
But that's where we're
Yeah.
at.
Back to the midnight battle, where Ray finally gets Gregorio healed and goes back to help keep the arrows away from the fire. But she's like, okay, fuck this. I'm tired of us standing around just getting these arrows shot at us and getting overwhelmed. I'm gonna go use my mycelium powers. And the last bells are tolling to midnight, and she's just goes for it. And I'm assuming that this is our Commodore Hastings that's on the ghost horse about to keep shooting at the fire. But Rael sends out her little mycelium powers, and the Commodore drops down from her horse and gets her bow out. And as she takes that last shot, the last bell tolls right before the arrow gets to the bonfire. And so the cadets have won the right to get a visitation from the dead witch of their choosing. It's a really cool scene. And I love that Rael is just like, F this noise, I'm going to use the mycelium powers.
Which begs the question, why wasn't she using that earlier?
Yeah, I don't think she wanted to pull them out. I don't think she...
Why not? If you could end this, end it. Why were we doing that with like 10 seconds on the clock? It was weird.
I just think she's like, well, this is how we're supposed to do this. And then all of a sudden she's like, wait a minute.
Oh yeah, I have other powers.
I'm a witch bomb.
I forgot with 10 seconds left on the clock. It was very weird. One thing I want to point out in that scene where Rael leaves Gregorio and starts running, there's this really cool wide shot. I highly encourage you to go back and look at it, where she's running. And we see the fire in the middle where the cadets are all around defending it, the hearth, or the bonfire or whatever. And the whole scene is shrouded in blue because, again, it's nighttime. But in the background, if you look, there's all these dazzling points of light. And it reminded me of those gold specks from the scene with the death cap.
Mm-hmm.
And so this is that, like, I think it was hinting at what Rael was going to do, number one. But also it's that we're in Cilla's world, Rael's invading Cilla's world, and we're about to do that, like, life and death kind of magic. So I think it's really cool, and I love the way they did that. Because there was no reason for them to have those gold specks in the background. Unless it was on purpose. It's very cool. Go back and look at that.
Yeah, very on purpose.
So after the midnight, so also, like, how long was this Camarilla meeting going to be going on for? Because, like, now it's midnight. Like, And now we're just getting the rituals started back at the opera house. But okay, sure. And so back at the opera house, Anacostia, we follow Anacostia and see where she went. She wandered into some back room and she's snooping around. And the goon finds her and he takes off his mask and reveals that this is Orsatti. So now Orsatti is trailing Anacostia. And she's like, oh, God, it's not you again. And this misogynist is like, oh, have we met? And she roundhouse kicks him in the face, knocking him to the ground, and is like, does that jog your memory, bitch?
Damn.
But also, like, really? You guys met like 3 days ago. Like, it's so weird. I don't get that. But, you know, he's a misogynist. He doesn't remember what women look like. Why would he remember a woman's face? That's preposterous. And so after she kicks his ass, which is wonderful, she tries to get to the circuit breaker to like cut the power off while he's down, but Orsatti stops her and they get into this brawl where Anacostia is kicking much more ass in heels, no less. And while he's on the ground for the second time, he rises and flashes that Camarilla scythe. And this is the only time where Anacostia looks uncomfortable because not only does he have a weapon, but it's like that symbol of just like intense anti-witch hatred that's happening here. And then we cut away from Anacostia into the opera house. And the Exarch now is passing out stones to all these masked cowards because they're getting ready to stone the child to death. And Silla is me and can't take this anymore because this is triggering. This is so triggering for so many reasons, especially to Silla, because think about the position she's in. She's watching from the staircase as a child's about to get killed. So another witch. So it's almost like flashback to young Silla when her parents were getting killed by the army and she chose not to do anything. So here's an opportunity for her to act in order to save an innocent witch's life. And so she does. She takes that opportunity and she says, take me, not her. And the Exarch does this evil cackle and he's like, why, girl, you're one of us. We ain't gonna take you. And she's like, I'm nothing like you monsters about to murder a child. I'm a witch. And the crowd gasps and I start laughing because I was like,
it's amazing.
What are you guys doing? They're so weird. And she takes off her mask because she's like, I'm not a coward. I'm not going to hide behind my mask. I am who I am. Like, fuck all of you. And Shane starts pleading, Justine, what are you doing? She's like, my name's not Justine, you ignorant rat carcass, because animal insults. And she just keeps going and flexing with everything that she has. She's like, not only am I a witch, I am the spree, and I have killed thousands of people just like you, and I enjoyed it every single time. And she says it with such glee, which makes me so happy, because last episode we had sad Silla in her feels, and now we got our bad bitch back, and it feels so good. And the Exarch, while everyone's freaking out that is still wearing masks, the Exarch is just calm, and he's like, oh goody, you know what? This is perfect. And he pulls out his Camarilla scythe and runs it menacingly along Tiffany's neck. And he's like, the little one can watch because your vocal cords are perfectly ripe for harvesting. And the way he delivered that line made my skin crawl. It was such like yearning and like lust. It was
so disgusting.
So gross. All these creepy men need to die is the bottom line here. And when I was about to just punch this dude through the TV, Mama Costia comes through and cuts the power. And the crowd freaks out more. And Silla realizes what's going on. And this mischievous, triumphant grin spreads across her face. And she's like so excited. And I'm excited. And the spree music starts playing. And then Silla has all the power and the sass in this moment. And she's like, trick or treat, bitch. And wind strikes the Exarch across the stage. And I love when she does this because not one Camarilla minion tries to help him. All those masked cowards flee the building and just leave that bitch on the ground. They're like, whatever, we're gone. And they just all leave. So it shows their character in that moment. And as the cowards are all fleeing, Silla stalks up to the Exarch and grabs her lighter and does this thing where she ignites his face and she watches and the flames reflect in her eyes, which is a very cool shot. And this cloud of smoke appears from the ashes of his face or whatever, magically, and she inhales it and then exhales it. And I guess this is the process for the spree to take faces. But it doesn't make a whole lot of sense to me, because then how did the spree agent in Series 1 get close enough to Rael to do this to steal her face? I don't quite understand that. And there's later we see glamoring with inanimate objects. Like, do they have to do this with the inanimate object? Like, I think this was mostly for the visual because it doesn't make a lot of sense to me.
No, it doesn't. It does not make the sense at all.
Yes, but good on you, Silla. I am happy to see you back to just kicking asses and taking names and enjoying it for something you believe in. It's nice to see.
I also love her egging them on and like extending this by like saying pretty much whatever she can to piss them off even more, or to piss the Exarch off even more if she can, by being like, and I enjoyed it every single time. Because we all know that she didn't enjoy inflicting the pain on the innocent people, but I don't think she reveled in it like she's portraying. But I love that she used that to egg on the Exarch.
I think if Silla managed to kill some Camarilla during her spree nonsense, she would have enjoyed that.
Oh, she would have enjoyed that, absolutely.
That's what I mean. She's like, I killed people like you. Like you. If I killed people like you, I enjoy that shit. Like, fuck you guys. I think there's half-truths laced in there, to be honest with you.
Well, and it was glorious just watching her do her thing.
It was so good. It was just Silla doing her thing, like you said. It was amazing. Highlight of the episode, truly.
So back to Sekhmet after the ghost battle. They're sitting around the fire, and Tally helps Gregorio up, and they have their little moment where they kind of stop and look at one another. And so that's coming at some point. Then we flash back to Silla holding Tiffany's hand as all three of them, meaning Anacostia as well, flee down the steps to leave the opera house. And then we come back to M holding a wooden box with candles in it. And they say, find a dark place to be alone and light your candle. Say the name of the witch that you wish to speak with. As the wax melts, your messenger will be freed and bring forth your requested dead. You have until the candle burns out. So they're going to go find a nice private space, light their candle, the messenger comes out, the dead witch comes, they can talk to them until the candle burns out. I don't know about you, but usually candles take a long time to burn out, but everybody's acting like this is going to be like 15 minutes.
Right. I don't get that. They're big-ass candles, too.
They're big-ass candles, so those are going to last. Those are like 14-hour candles.
Yeah, like that would look like a day. Like, what the hell? Yeah.
Are they magic candles? Like, I mean, I know they're magic candles, but do they burn faster than normal candles?
Right. That's what I was thinking. I understand the sentiment that, like, even if you have 24 hours with this candle, it still never feels like enough time. But yeah, it's like this is over within, like, the night, and it's already past midnight. So really, how long was this candle ceremony? It's weird. It doesn't make sense.
We see later that these witches are not slow to come when called, so they had quite a while to talk to them.
Right. It's weird, but it's almost like, oh, you had 5 minutes.
The timing in this episode is so off and weird.
It's a lot of Motherland Fort Salem silence is what I'm calling it. It doesn't make sense, but well, sure.
Gregorio tells Abigail that he'll tell Libba that she says hello, and aww. Abigail says, give her my best, and I'm like, I miss Libba.
Me too. Bring her back, please.
Somehow. Yeah. So Tally asks Rael if she's all right, and Rael's kind of just sitting there going through all the things she could possibly ask her mother and cannot decide where to start. So then we get to...
But wait, before she says that, she says the line, the last thing she said to me before she left is like one of the things. Like Rael's like, I don't even know where to begin. And then like the last thing she said to me before she left, she meaning Willa. Like put a pin in that because that comes up.
So everyone finds their private spot and lights their candle.
I will say I love the way they shot this scene with them all lighting the candles and how this goes. It reminded me of in the pilot when they did the say the words and they were cutting between the protagonists.
Yes, it did.
And question, where the fuck did Tally go?
Like, she is inside the wall of some building where she's like in the basement of one of the like. Okay, so
the boiler room, like
you know how every freaking every freaking like big institution facility has that one room where all of the like boiler, electrical stuff and everything is. Tally went there and found like this corridor that was deserted and drippy and wet.
Why does
and
she
creepy.
know? Why does she know where this place is?
Because Tally needs to know everything about Fort Salem, and that's where she's just been wandering the grounds in her free time.
I accept that.
So Tally off screen has been discovering all of the little passageways and weird quirks of Fort Salem while she reads Reveille. Sorry.
This is where she goes to read.
This is where she goes to read Reveille.
So her unit doesn't make fun of her.
Exactly. She has to do it in private. Mm-hmm. So everybody lights their candles and says the name of their dead witch. And then spiders crawl out of the candles and skitter away. Not small spiders, big spiders.
Why does it always need to be a spider?
Because it's Halloween and it's creepy and it's Samhain and it's creepy.
Also, side note, where the fuck do you think Rael's spider actually went?
It did a lap of Fort Salem.
Because Rael's like Willa collar. And that spider was probably like laughing like, bitch, she alive, and then like fucked off the whole night.
That bitch ain't dead.
Like, it would have been nice if the spider was like, try
excuse me, ma'am.
Try again. No. That spider just like, cool, my night's done. And just
you like, sure about that? Yeah, the spider went to get like a Slurpee at 7-Eleven.
Yeah, it's gone. It's like, have fun with that candle.
Yeah. Have fun watching that candle burn down. So, as Rael's spider's laughing and skittering away, we go back to Tally, who gets visited immediately by Valda. And Tally tries to introduce herself in the most awkward way possible. Hi, I'm Tally. I like long walks on the beach, and I'm a private in the United States Army, basically.
Oh, and Tally, sweet summer child.
Yeah. Valda's like, we ain't got much time, girl. Get to the point.
She's like, okay, conscripted. Like, why the fuck did you disturb my slumber?
I was having a Samhain party with my buddies, and you had to call me up. Now let's get to the point.
Seriously.
So that's where this scene ends.
Then we cut over to Abigail, who summons Charvel, because obviously. And Charvel appears and calls her a failure immediately. Mm-hmm. So,
damn, she's just going in. She just goes in and like hits the soft spot.
She's like, you fucking failure. Which I'm sure is what Valda wanted to say to Tally. But anyway, so the energy of the ghost is not great. So Abigail's like, okay, but also, yeah, I guess I am a failure. And she's like, just dives right into her grief and all her guilt that she has over Charvel's death. And she's like, I should have been there to save your life. And like, I live with that every day. And Charvel's like, bitch, you didn't fail me. You failed yourself. And then it cuts to Rael, who's all alone in the dark, staring at this door where the spider fucked off and looking sadder and sadder by the second. Like she's just losing her hope. And like, she needs a hug. Like that spider needs to come back and hug her.
Yep.
Not okay.
I am really upset anytime Rael's upset, so this is especially sad.
So sad.
I want to go hug her. Poor Rael. It's always getting just the crappy end of things.
She does, always.
Back to Tally and Valda Esterbrook. So Tally's first question is, why did you martyr yourself? And Valda's like, lies! I'm like, damn, she's not having this.
Her energy is just fuck you.
It's fuck you and intense. So she pushes Tally up against the creepy brick wall and just like looks into her eyes and gives her this vision of what actually happened. So she's inside a church with the rest of the rebels, and it's like a really, it's like a really kind of rundown type of small village church with this like beautiful stained glass behind Valda. And
yeah, I thought that was significant that they chose to take refuge in a place of worship.
Exactly. So Velda is telling her people that she surrendered. It was the only thing she could do. And then a jar bursts through one of the really pretty stained glass windows and shatters on the ground. And then all of the rebels start killing themselves one by one while Velda watches and is like, no! And then at the end, yeah.
Yeah, she's holding a machete and she stabs herself with a machete.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, it's pretty fucked up. And I love in that scene that Valda uses the word when she's talking to her comrades. She's like, I think she says the word choice, which I think is key because call back to Willa and Cilla's conversation earlier where Willa's like, you always have a choice, like living versus like dying kind of thing. Some things are worth dying for, some things are worth living for. And so for Valda and her comrades, dying for their cause wasn't worth it. So that's why they chose to surrender. But then Sarah Alder like took that choice away from them. So again, that line from Willa was very poignant for the whole freaking episode. And it highlights what happened here too.
Yep.
Then from Tally's jungle dream, we shoot over to Abigail and Charvel. And Charvel is explaining why she was like, Abigail, you failed you. And so she's explaining this to her. She's like, listen, you let yourself be victimized by the animals that slaughtered me. The enemies used your own insecurities against you. You complain about others not getting the job done that you should be getting done yourself, which I love because, yeah, like a tough bellwether that was seasoned probably wouldn't have let this happen to them. But like poor Abigail had such a attachment to Charvel and it just caused this victimizing. And that's exactly what was happening with her. So I love that Charvel is the one that's pointing this out to Abigail, that it's like, you know, you're not only did you let them manipulate you, but you're constantly complaining about others. And that's what was happening. Like anytime she was in the room with like Alder and her mom, she's like, how come you guys aren't fighting the Camarilla? You guys aren't doing enough. And it's like, if you're so pissed off about this, do it yourself. Like you're a bellwether, you get the job done. And so I love that. I think that's like the pep talk piece Abigail needed to hear. But Abigail's still like very emotional about all this. And she's like, listen, I'm a soldier. I do what I'm told. And Charvel's like, I thought that too. And then I got murdered. So I think this is more reinforcement with Charvel and Abigail that, like, you know, Abigail would have easily turned into Charvel. Charvel's the one that followed the bellwether playbook. She did everything by the rules, did what she was told. She was a good soldier and a good bellwether, like doing what was expected of her. And so that could have easily been Abigail, but Abigail, through her journey and through what happened with Charvel, really started questioning like who she was, like Abigail, the individual, not the soldier, not the part of the whole. And so I love that line because it's very much like, if you keep following the playbook, you're going to get murdered too, is the implication here.
Yeah. And then, you know, I like that she brings up because calling herself a soldier is that sort of faceless cog in the machine viewpoint of it. So she's kind of like falling back on that, and then
yeah, it's more victimizing. It's like I was taking orders. I just do what I'm told. I have no autonomy here, is what she's really saying. But Charvel's like, no, you do. You just have to freaking own it.
Right. And the way that the scenes are cut up, like we've already covered Tally seeing Velda kill herself, and then Tally wakes up from her vision, and it just goes right back to Charvel and Abigail.
Yeah, and at that point, like the candle is basically done, and it's like, how long was this dream? Again,
how long did it take you to watch these people kill themselves? Was it like 30 minutes a piece? I don't understand.
Right. How long was this
Is this in slow-mo?
I don't know. Or just like, because it almost seems like Tally, again, it doesn't make a lot of sense, the logistic of this, because Tally had to go find that dungeon and like get there and set up. So I imagine it's farther away than whatever room Abigail and Rael just like went into, because they were in a building and they just went into rooms. And then Tally had to like go in the dungeon. So like it must have took longer. But Tally finishes first. Like the candle goes out first. So I wonder, like, because she did this dream sequence thing, did it use more magic, quote unquote, from the candle and
Quite
extinguish it faster?
possibly.
Maybe? Because it doesn't make
Because
sense.
you could tell Velda was not about explaining everything, and so she's like, let me just show you, bitch.
Like, bitch, you just need to see this. I don't even know. I still don't know who you are.
I still don't know who you are,
I
but
know
here's
I'm
the
here.
answer to your question. Can I get back to my party?
Yeah, exactly. Like, she's just like, let me rest in peace. The peace part. I don't want to be traumatized again. Fuck you. Like,
listen, dumb suppers going on, and I need to smell that delicious food.
or maybe Velda manipulated the candle because she's like, I want this to end.
Yeah, she's like, can I please get out of here?
Right. She's like, as Tally's distracted by the dream, Velda's like cutting the candle.
She's like, slice, 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 slice.
Yeah, burning it faster.
It's like when you put a movie on to distract someone and then
Yes.
you just
You go in the background and like, yeah, exactly. That's what Velda was doing, I think, and that's why Tally wakes up on the floor and it's just like, oh, I guess we're done. Velda did that. She was like, I remember this.
Yeah.
I love it. So meanwhile, while Tally's getting manipulated by Velda's magic, Abigail and Charvel finish up their discussion, and Charvel concludes this epic pep talk by saying, like, you need to stop being a soldier, like, quote unquote, somebody who just takes orders, and be a warrior, someone who takes charge is like the implication. And Abigail's like, yeah, whatever, but like, I just don't want to be afraid anymore. That's really the root of it. The whole time, Abigail's been so unsettled by this fear, and she just can't shake it and doesn't know how to deal with it. And Charvel basically says, like, you're Abigail Bellwether. Like, you're the last of our line. And you are vengeance. Which I thought was really interesting. Why the hell do you think she said that?
You are vengeance.
You are vengeance. Like, that's what she ends with.
You will avenge our entire line, basically. Like,
yeah, I guess it's more like, listen, like, you're it. Like, you're a bellwether. You're powerful. You're the last bellwether. So, like, you're the last one, I guess, that can inflict punishment on these animals for, like, the wrongs done against our family, I guess.
It's kind of like...
It's like a weird... It's like, it sounds powerful, but like it's a weird sentiment in my opinion.
She is... See, to me, it kind of made sense because she is embodying vengeance on behalf of Charvel. She is the bellwether that's going to rid the world of these horrible people who want all witches dead. I mean, bellwethers are such a important part of witchhood that it would be, super appropriate for at least one of the main people to get rid of the Camarilla is a bellwether. Like, you are the vengeance. Be the vengeance that,
Yeah, I feel like be vengeance would have made more sense, but she's like, you are vengeance. I was like, Is she though? Like, I think Abigail has to become vengeance. I don't know. It was very weird. And she seemed very confident about it, and then just like fades away, and Abigail just like thinks about that.
Yeah, I think it was more of a thing to give her to think about, to like, this is what you need to be.
Yeah. Just the tense was weird. She's like, you are vengeance. Like, she has to... I don't think she's there yet.
Nicole? Can we ask a question?
Nicole, what was going on when you wrote this episode, girl? Like, what is this? There's some things don't math in this episode. But at least Abigail got to hear from Charvel that, like, it alleviates some of the guilt that it's like, listen, you didn't fail me, but you're failing me by being a victim and not standing up for us, basically. Like, go stand up for us and kill those motherfuckers is the sentiment, really. My takeaway.
Yeah. And that just brings us to sad Rael. This one hurts.
Just pain and sadness. That's all this is.
Pain and sadness. Because Rael's watching her candle burn out, and she lets out this very painful, for me, cry of like, Mom, And that just hit me right in the heart space. And I'm like, why? And then as the candle is going out and the very last parts of the flame are just leaving, she's like, Mom, please. And then she holds herself and cries. And I need to take like 5 hours of break after that scene because it's
She needs
just
a hug, and
painful.
no one would hug her, so she had to hug herself.
She's got to hug herself because no one else is there.
If she had a nicer spider, this wouldn't have happened, is all I'm
Yeah,
saying.
if her spider wasn't such a dickhead.
Yeah. He was like, oh, you want me to get a live person? I'm not doing that. Bye.
Ta-ta!
You just wasted a candle. So weird.
So weird. And I don't like it. And
No.
then we go to, after that, with Tally and Rael sitting on a couch in the segment common room, and Abigail approaches them. Ray's looking at the photo that Silla dropped at the protest / testing center opening, and she's simultaneously rubbing her bowerbird charm with her thumb, and she just says she didn't come. So once again, they don't hug Rael, and I'm like, can you guys just hug Rael? I know she's not like super approachable in that way, but somebody give this woman a hug. And she says like she went over the conversation she would have with Willa so many times and thought about what she'd say, what her mom would say back, and she'd tell her, and that her mom would tell her that she needed a haircut. Okay? Because this just, I'll give you a little tidbit about why this really, really got to me, because my father passed away quite a while ago, but I remember specifically when he was unconscious and they told me like, you have this much time, like you need to say goodbye now. So I went in there and I had no freaking idea what to say, because what do you say in that kind of situation? And I feel like this is the kind of thing Rael was struggling with. Like, she's gone over this conversation so many times, she's had time to think about this, but what would she actually say? Like, what would her mom say back? Like, she's just imagined and kind of fantasized about this conversation. And one of the things was just that little piece of thing that her mom would have said to her just offhand: you need to get your hair cut. And that's like sort of the kind of thing that I always imagined that my dad would say to me if he had been conscious during that time period. But I ended up telling him that I would take care of these beavers that were jamming up the creek in our yard. So it's those little tiny things that in your grief that remind you that this person that you loved was alive and what they would have said to you if they were alive. So it's incredibly emotional and incredibly sad to think of Rael thinking about her mom. Well, if she was there, even in ghost form, she would have told me to get a haircut. And it kind of reminds me of that I don't know if any of you ever watched Buffy, but the scene in Buffy, the episode The Body, where Anya's talking about how this person has died and she'll never brush her hair or have fruit punch again. It's the realities of death. Like, those people are you're never going to hear their voice again. You're never going. And like, Rael had this chance and her mom didn't show up. So once again, she feels like her mom abandoned her and she doesn't know why. Like, what? And she's going to internalize it. Like, what about me is my mom won't show up for me? What does that say? So just think about that in Rael's very complicated relationship with her mother.
Yeah. Yes to all of that. And what I love about the line specifically, it's like, she'll probably just tell me I need a haircut. It's just such a like mundane motherly love thing. And
Exactly.
it's probably something for Rael that was annoying to hear growing up, but like now she's like misses it now that mom was gone, you know? Say that even the things that used to annoy me as a kid, you know?
Exactly.
But yeah, I agree. The relationship built and developed between Willa and Rael is very complicated and is not fully explored, in my opinion. And we'll get there later, and I'll rant about it. But the fact that Rael gets quote unquote abandoned by Willa multiple times is really frustrating for a number of reasons. But like Rael never gets to really process all this mama stuff. It's just this constant weighing sadness, and she's always being like thrown into new situations and never really gets to process any of this stuff. So I feel like this just sadness stuff with her mom is just always constantly lingering, and it's never fully dealt with by Rael. So it's like the thing that really defines her character the most, because we've seen the mama sadness, the mama abandonment since the pilot. And here we are again. It's just like reinforcing that more. Like that this is a thing that really, really, really defines Rael and really, really shapes her character and how she like interacts with other people. And it's just Rael never gets to process any of this. It's annoying, truly.
Yeah, it really is. Very annoying, but
And also reinforces they love torturing Rael because
yes, they do love torturing Rael. It's the greatest pastime of Elliot and the writers. So
it is.
Rael asks, why didn't she come? Why didn't she want to talk to me? And Tally, who's at a loss and is just sad for Rael, is like, I don't know. Like, there's nothing else really, like, there's no way to answer that question. So
no.
Rael says
a rando came and talked to Tally.
Yeah,
you know?
like Tally got like Velda, even though she wasn't happy to be there.
They didn't know each other. I was like, who the fuck are you? Yeah, exactly. But I'm here. Unscripted, bitch.
So Rael says that she needs to go home for break and see her dad, and she walks away. So you see that Rael is going to go home, needs to go home and figure some stuff out and talk to her dad. So she's not going to go to Abigail's for break. So we're left with Tally and Abigail, and Tally kind of apologizes to Abigail, and she's like, I need to go with Rael, is basically what she's saying. So she's going to go like help Rael and be with her and support her. And Abigail tells Tally about Charvel telling her to be vengeance, or that she is vengeance, and Tally, and basically she infers that she's going to go off and hunt the Camarilla on her own, and that's why she's fine with Tally going to Rael's. So she's just like, yeah, I'm going to go hunt the Camarilla. I'm going to get these mothers. I'm going to get them. But Tally's like, Abigail, reality check. You would just be offering yourself up to them. Mm-hmm. So you go, even if you did find the Camarilla, you're one witch who's not fully trained. You're just going to go in there and they're going to capture you and kill you and take your vocal cords. Like, what are you thinking?
Right.
And Abigail's kind of like, oh yeah, girl, you right. Except I don't think she really is.
No, she's like, I'm so excited to be vengeance now. It makes me, I can be reckless, I guess.
Yeah. She's like, I don't care. I am vengeance. They can't touch me. And it's like, I'll kick their asses. And I'm like, girl, calm down. Listen to Tally. So she placates Tally and is like, yeah, you're right. I'm just excited because Samhain, and I'm sure my mom won't let me out of her sight for the entire break. And then who should appear but Petra?
She had such perfect timing. She's like, you called, daughter.
You called, daughter. We've got Tally kind of looks at Petra, and Petra's like, GTFO, with her eyeballs. And Tally's like, okay, bye. So Petra kind of looks like something's happened, and Abigail's like, oh, Jesus, what now? And Petra's like, it's about a dill. Like, can you please not just say it's about a dill like you're about to tell her he's dead?
I know. Phrasing matters, guys. Words matter.
Jeez. So that's where the scene ends. They really like ending scenes on very dramatic notes this episode.
Yeah, it's all about the drama. this episode for sure. But Abigail got some good news, and so she, after hearing that from Petra, literally runs, and we see her running through Fort Salem out into like the parking lot. I don't even know. She's running. There's hopeful music swells. There's an army vehicle pulling up to Fort Salem, and Adil gets out, and Abigail literally runs from Sekhmet to the van and crashes into him with a hug. And there's some fawning over him for a bit. She's glad he's okay, and he lets it drop that the attack we saw at the beginning of the episode in the train, the only survivors from the train were him and Kalita. And I would love to know what work they used to get them out of that. Did it have anything to do with the fact that they were passing through a literal hole in the mountain, so they're passing through Earth and earthwork saved them? I don't know. Just questions that will probably never be answered, but I would love to know how they survived that particularly.
Yeah, you have to think it has something to do with their power, their work that we don't know about or something.
Right, because I don't think it's coincidence that that train was going through a hole in a mountain, which is literal Earth, while this was happening, so that probably somehow saved them.
Absolutely.
Because they're earthwork people.
Oh, dear.
Yeah, so then Adil says, yeah, Kalita's alive, but she's still with the Hague, and he was going to stay with her, but Kalita, in her good graces, told him to come here because she knew he wanted to see Abigail. So I love that she's like, I'll let you go back to Fort Salem because she's the boss. And Kalita has a ton of big witch energy when she's not on screen, and I love it.
It surely does.
And Abigail hears that and just has this giant smile, and she's like, I'm just really glad you're here and obviously alive. And she goes to grab his hand, and we see that like his hand is shaking like crazy, and he mentions that he's been shaking since India, so he's very, very rattled by what happened, which totally understandable. And then they get on the topic of the Camarilla because at this point they've both undergone these very traumatic experiences where they're both being hunted by the same group. And Adil notes that being hunted gives you a unique perspective on survival, doesn't it? And this like calls back to their prior conversation where Abigail basically was like saying that, you didn't fight back and it's your, she almost like put blame on Adil for not fighting back, and that's why his people were being like picked off by the Camarilla. But he's like, yeah, whatever, but like, look, now you have the same perspective as me, and do you understand like why I was so upset about this and you couldn't see it? And so I'm glad it puts them on equal footing now. And she's like, well, fuck those guys, it's time to make them feel hunted, starting with the one that killed Charvel. Which is kind of fucked up because, in a way, I get why she's saying that, but she's also like, it's all great and stuff that that they tried to kill you, but we're gonna go after the one that killed my cousin first, rather than be like, let's go after the ones that tried to kill both of us. We're gonna put the Bellwethers first.
She does very phrase that in the, well,
right.
Listen,
it's very Abigail, but also it's like,
very Abigail because let's be honest, Abigail is a little self-absorbed.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so I love that even in this moment, she's like, but I'm more important.
Yes.
It's subtle, but it's there.
Even in the entire conversation, I feel like she should have apologized to him.
Right.
For some shit that she said, and she did not.
No.
She was just like, yeah, that's right. You see my point now.
Right. She's like, glad we're on the same page. Like, let's for the ones that tried to kill the Bellwethers.
Abigail continuing her inability to speak to people.
It's wild. She's growing, but still, it's, yeah.
She's growing, but she's still Abigail.
Yeah, exactly.
So yeah, I'm like, I really hope Adil does not let her plow over him in every sense of their relationship going forward, because she needs to be checked sometimes.
She really does.
So now we're going to go to my favorite scene in this entire episode.
Yes.
I have so many notes on this scene.
My first note is ew, 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 ew.
I like that you start there.
Well, because like when I was watching this for the first time, I'm like, That's Silla.
Yeah.
Shout out to the actress that plays Bonnie, because she did like an Orphan Black Tatiana Maslany here, where she was like, I'm playing Silla, playing my character. And it shows when she's like walking and talking. And so great job on that actress. Like, she did an awesome job of like picking up Scylla's little mannerisms when she's like going about this scene.
She had to have watched Scylla like scenes before she did this, because
for sure.
And I'm sure she had a conversation with Amalia, and they kind of went through stuff. Obviously they did that, but she freaking nailed it. And my first note is just that Bonnie comes in and asks if Shane wants some breakfast, because she just dropped Brianna off at school. So Bonnie is dressed still in her, I guess, what I would call PJs. And of course, Shane, who's just laying in bed in his wife beater, as they're called, vest if you're in the UK, just goes, he's like, Denver omelet, extra ham. I'm like, I'm gonna slap you with an omelet in a second, sir.
Ew, ew, ew.
But we're about to get to the ooh, because
I don't
the
like
fact that Silla would got through this without going it was amazing to me. Mm-hmm. But she is very focused on her mission. And so as Bonnie, she smiles and nods, but the actress that plays Bonnie has that freaking Silla smile down pat. Yeah. It's so mischievous, but like evil. Mm-hmm. And so she picks up this pink pencil that has a unicorn with rainbow mane and tail, and she crawls onto the bed and straddles Shane and says, "Are you sure that's all you want?" And everything in my body revolts. I never, ever, ever wanted to think about Shane in this way. So he is ready to have more for breakfast than an omelet. And she gets really close to his face, and he's like going to kiss her, but she stops. And she's like, Tiffany's still not in school. You don't think something bad happened to her, do you? And he's tired of being asked about Tiffany. Like, she's offering up sex, and he's like, and now you're talking about, listen, bitch. So he kind of sighs, and he's like, of course not. And anyway, we've talked about this bond. Even if something bad did happen to her, it's just one less witch in the world. So he just full out gives her every reason in the universe to just go ahead. Like, he's already done that, but saying this, I think, just caps off the reason why he's about to go. He
just showed his hand, is what he did. He
just showed his hand, absolutely. So Bonnie / Silla grins and lowers like she's going to kiss him. And she's right above his mouth, and she starts saying, not our daughters, not our daughters. And he's kind of confused at her behavior, because it's not Bonnie behavior, obviously. I don't think Bonnie would have done anything that's happening in this room right now would not have been a Bonnie thing.
No, but I love that Silla chose to do this, because he is like, because again, I think what this scene is also showing or reinforcing yet again is that while Shane has his wife going to all these not our daughter movements, like, he doesn't really involve her with what's really happening, because he's still lying about Tiffany.
Right.
But remember, Bonnie said, oh, well, this group is so good for him. It gives him something to do with all his hurt feelings, essentially. So I think by, like, quote unquote, Bonnie saying this, she's like, hey, I'm super into this thing you're super into. So it gets him all excited, like, okay, you're into this thing that I'm into, all my grossness. But it's Silla saying, and I love it, because to her words are basically saying, not our daughters, like, not the witches.
Exactly.
So you're not doing this on my watch. So I love the doublespeak that's happening here, and the way it's perceived by both of these characters in this scene. It makes it all the more satisfying with what Silla does.
Yes, because I love that Silla's using their own words against them.
Yes.
It's very poetic. And it really fits into Silla as a character.
Yep. It's wonderful. It's clever, and she is clever.
Very clever.
The wind strike thing made me think she wasn't clever, but then she does things like this, and like, see, you are clever, girl.
She's a very. I feel like Cilla's one of those characters that's like sometimes she's so smart that she does dumb things.
I guess it's just Silla, girl. But the scene was good. This was peak Silla.
Like
awesome.
the common sense thing doesn't like ring in her head occasionally, but so Shane's very confused at first by Bonnie chanting "Not our daughters" at him, and he's kind of excited by it. And that's when you see the pencil and Scylla's / Bonnie's hand out beside his head, and she just rams that pencil right on through his ear, into his brain. Brianna's favorite pencil is what kills her father.
Good. And when I saw this for the very first time, I said out loud, "Killing gross men looks good on you, babe." Because it does.
Yep.
It really does.
I have no problem with this particular murder.
No. You want to kill gross men? Yes. I'm fine with that. No, she shouldn't get charged for that. She did a public service.
I'm going to call back to the phrasing of Charvel. I think the person that is vengeance in this episode is Silla.
Yeah, it's not Abigail. It's actually Silla.
It's actually Silla.
It's Silla.
I feel like a lot of the things that always get okay, and this is, I don't want to undermine Abigail's.
No, I think Abigail will become vengeance. She's not vengeance right now. Silla is actually vengeance.
Like I said, I don't want to undermine Abigail's strength as a character or as as a witch, but I want to say that at this point in their lives, especially, Silla is so much further along.
Yes.
Than Abigail ever could think to be. Yes. Because she's had to take action. She has been forced to go out. She's been forced to be out in the world by herself, fending for herself, finding ways to survive. And Abigail never had to do any of that. No. So and Silla knows that. So that's why you see that there's a lot of tension with them in the very beginning. And each of the actresses have said that it's because the characters think each other is stupid. But I think really it's that Silla knows Abigail doesn't know a damn thing about the real world. And she does. Mm-hmm. So I think that it's funny that, and kind of cool that Silla is vengeance and Abigail has not gotten there yet.
Exactly.
She may be like sometimes choosing really dumb things to do in situations, but man, she got the job done here, and
she took the initiative to do that.
She did.
This. I think that needs to be highlighted. She
it does.
Took the initiative to do this for humanity. So thank you, Silla, for your public service.
Yes. So Bonnie / Silla sits up and pulls a lighter out of the waistband of her pants, lights her face to reveal Silla, who cocks her head to the side a little bit, which is like, I'm sorry, and I would never say this in a real world circumstance, but Silla killing this dude is super hot. I'm sorry.
No, it definitely is. It looks good on her. She's in her element right now. Let her do this more often. We don't need redemption. Let her do it. It's good for humanity. This man was going to kill a child. Come on now.
Not just kill a child. He kidnapped a child and gave her over to people who were going to.
But also, Silla, you couldn't get off this man before doing this.
Yeah.
I hate that part. What are you doing? Get off the dead man.
Was it even more insulting to you? Like, I don't think she has any feelings at all about what she's doing.
Oh, no. Not
at but all. To us, it's like, girl,
get off this man and then light your face on fire. What are you doing? It's gross.
So she looks down at him and says, "Not our daughters," one last time, but in a different tone. So then we go to her leaving, and she's back in her own clothes, which super freaking great outfit for her with the moon t-shirt and the blazer. I'm in love with it.
Yes, wardrobe, all the awards for you.
Wardrobe, all the awards for Silla.
But wait, can we just go back to her last "not our daughters" line? Because I think that the tone she says it in is important.
It is. Because
the implication there is like, it gives you Silla's motivation for taking Shane or killing him, because like, not our daughters, like, you're not going to kill like witches on my watch is the implication there. And I think that's really
Right.
important because that's been Scylla's mission the whole freaking time. So like really her mission has never ever ever changed. Like she's a true believer in taking out those that want to harm people just like her. So I think that's really important. It goes to show you like Scylla's mindset has never changed. She's never deviated from this thing she really believes in. Like which group she side with and who, you know, the greater evil is may change, but like her true believing in extinguishing the evil that threatens to kill witches, I think is really important. And that's what's really highlighted with that line and that tone.
Yep.
And I love too that she used a pencil to kill him because she didn't kill him with witch's work. And I think that's also super important. She killed him the way a human would kill another human. And I love that little detail.
Yep. It's a good detail, not only because it's perfect.
She used a child's pencil because he was about to kill a child and then like killed him in such a human way. And I love that. She's like, look, I'm not different from you, am I?
Mm-hmm. Cilla's very much about the meaning behind her actions.
Yeah.
So, and that's very, very evident in this scene. So as she's leaving the house, Bonnie shows up with a bag of groceries. They couldn't be any more made for TV because there's a baguette sticking out one side and some leafy greens sticking out the other.
It's always. Why is that always what people on TV are buying?
It's like there's only two things in this bag. It's
green stuff.
It's a baguette and some green stuff.
Yeah, always. But yeah, Bonnie is doing Bonnie stuff. I love it.
Yeah. Bonnie's doing Bonnie stuff.
Okay, this is even more fucked up than her just being in the house because, like, she had a whole morning where she was doing stuff. Like, she took care of Brianna, took her to school, then went grocery shopping, and Shane was very grossly still asleep doing, like, what does he even do? He was doing nothing while Bonnie was having a whole morning. It's fucked up. I hate him.
Yeah.
Thank you, Silla, again, for your public service.
Exactly. So they run into one another, and Bonnie's very happy to see Justine because, hey, it's my one of my friends I'm allowed to have. And she's like, hey, I didn't know you were coming over. And Cilla's trying to like, oh shit, just like get out of there. It's like, hey, yeah, I was just dropping something off for Shane. And Bonnie says, well, you want to stay for some coffee? And Cilla's like, no, I gotta go. Can't today. But, she stops before she leaves completely and says, Bonnie, find something to live for, something that's beautiful and real, like your daughter. Otherwise, hate is going to eat you whole. So she's trying to kind of preemptively give Bonnie some advice that she's been given and come to, take to heart herself. So it's very like she's passing on the lessons that she's learned, trying to anyway, to Bonnie, who's about to go in and find her husband dead. But yeah, good riddance to him.
I also love this line because it's what Silla learned from Willa, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like, there's a choice. Choose to live. Don't choose to be hate. And it parallels what happened to Willa, where Willa got entrenched with hate and ended up in the spree and lost the thing she was trying to love and live for, which was Rael. Then you have Silla also projecting her feelings about Rael into this statement because she chose to live for Rael. That's how she ended up defecting from the spree. She ended up in the dungeon with Anacostia being tortured. So, like, that's Scylla's projecting what she did, the advice of Willa, who's also in this situation. And also, I love that she really did Bonnie a favor. Like, this man was suffocating her and truly would have been a danger to Brianna, her daughter, if it came out that she was a witch. So really, Scylla did her a favor. And she's like, listen, you're going to, under, like, subtext is like, you're going to freak out, but, like, this is a good thing. I promise. Like, bye.
It'll be okay. Bye. Yeah. But, I like that parting. Like, she's like, oh, this is going to suck, but here's what you need to focus on. Focus on living for Brianna and not hating because of what happened with Shane. And I do think that Scylla can see that Bonnie was never as really into the whole movement and the whole hatred part of it. Because I think Bonnie at heart, even though we don't get to see a lot of her character, I think she's just a caring individual who just really wants, happiness for people around her, which is why it was so easy for Shane to pull her in, because she's a caretaker and he's someone who demands a lot of care taken of him.
Yeah, I mean, Scylla said it herself when they were first discussing Bonnie. She seems lonely.
She needs a friend.
Yeah, and you see with Shane, she has no friend there. She really barely has a partner. So, yeah, Scylla was right. Like, this woman is lonely and trapped in this life and was getting pulled into this hate-fueled movement that she didn't really seem into. She was just like, oh, there's women here I can hang out with. Yay. And something for me and my husband to bond over so he doesn't order me around more. So, so I think Scylla, like you said, was perceptive and picked up on that really early on. And I think through all these interactions, especially with Tiffany, I think that's why she went in there and really asked him to be like, are you playing this game with your wife too? Or was that sentence from earlier when we came to your front door and what you were telling our benefit or the lie you're telling your daughter? Like, are you lying to your wife too? And I think when Scylla heard that, she's like, yeah, you're a danger to your daughter, like if your daughter's a witch. So I think it's partially why she asked that. Because at first when I saw it, I'm like, why is she asking this? Like, doesn't she already know he kidnapped the kid? Why is she asking this? But I think it's important that Scylla asked that question disguised as Bonnie.
Yeah.
Yeah. Because I think Scylla was doing this not only because it's a public service, but I think she did it for Bonnie's sake.
She did.
So
absolutely. It was there were multiple reasons why she needed to get rid of Shane.
Yeah, it was very, very layered. And that's why I love that. I love the whole scene. And I love, love, love the line at the end, like, live for something beautiful like your daughter, because it's just so layered in so many different things. It's a beautiful line.
Yes. I always latch on to it being there are so many different kinds of love and beauty in the world. And Scylla's love and beauty was Rael, and Bonnie's can be her daughter, like,
yeah,
the person that's means the most to her. So there's that parallel.
exactly. And the implication there too is that, like, Scylla was consumed by hate at one point. That's what led to the murder at the mall, but she found Rael and is no more longer consumed with hate. But you see here that her ideology is still very much intact. It's just she has more autonomy over it, and she's doing it to live, not just to survive and be a sacrificial lamb like with Jonah. So I think it's really important that they showed him in this episode too, to have like the foil to Scylla and like contrast like what the true believer and how they're going about it and how one's surviving versus one is trying to like live. And
very much so.
Scylla chose that, and it's very significant. So
we needed that contrast of the two directions the spree are going in, which I think at this point the really the only people that were going in the direction of we're focusing on the Camarilla that we see are Silla and Willa. So, like, who else? Because we don't get to see anybody else from that cell besides Jonah, and he's like biffing off to go, like, what, you guys are forgetting the real reason why we're here, and he's so short-sighted, like, and it's the same kind of short-sightedness we'll see later on from other people in the spree.
I think the implication with Jonah too is that people are defecting Willa's cell over this. So I don't know that he was the first one. I think he's the first one we saw because time reasons, but
right.
Yeah.
Because we did get to see that other cell was as angry about Willa changing directions.
Yeah, I remember when Scylla came to this safe house, there was other spree agents there. There was a woman at the door we never see again. There's some dude hanging out in there. So I think that's Willa's cell, and like people are just disappearing until it's like just Willa and Scylla.
It's just Willa and Scylla now.
Which is a good team, so.
I'm here for it.
I'm not mad.
Oh, so that's the end of the episode.
Mm-hmm.
We've got recap. Mm-hmm. So basically, just going down the line here, Sharma dies of witch plague on the mysterious Agatha Christie type train ride into oblivion. Adil and Khalida escape, But no one at Fort Salem really knows that till towards the end of the episode. Alder tells Tally off for her audacity, but Tally still wants the truth. So there you have that. Justine and Amelia get further into the Camarilla hierarchy and discover that who the Exarch is and that Shane has kidnapped Tiffany and offered her up to be stoned to death. They save the day, get Tiffany out of there, and take the Exarch's face for future use. Samhain traditions are discussed, and the Coven protect the bonfire from Commodore Hastings and her troops, so they get to speak to the dead witch of their choosing, except for Rael, who is forever going to be emotionally tortured by the specter of her mother. Abigail speaks to Charvel, who chastises her for not taking matters into her own hands and tells her that she is vengeance, even though she's really not yet. Tally speaks to Valda Esterbrook, who gives her the inside info on what happened with the rebels and that they were forced to kill themselves and how, using Nicta's work that was thrown in there by Alder herself. Rael calls for her mom, who doesn't show because, spoiler alert, she's alive. And that spider just fucked off to wherever and never said a damn spider word back. There's some tension, like they're setting up a Tally and Gregorio romance. So keep watching for that if you're into it. Adil and Abigail reunite and decide to go after the Camarilla because now Adil knows what it's like to be hunted, and he's no longer in pacifist land. Silla, very rightly so, kills Shane with Brianna's favorite pencil and tells Bonnie to find something to live for in a mirror of her own story with Rael. Anything else that I missed?
I don't think so. Covered it for me.
So who's your Big Witch Energy Award? I wonder if they're going to be the
Big Witch Energy Ramshorn.
Silla, Big Witch Energy Ramshorn. She gets the award. If you give it to anybody else, I'm going to question your sanity.
Runner-up was Anacostia for kicking a dude's ass in heels.
Oh,
beautiful.
Oh, I love Dimitri and After the Storm being so excited to get to do that scene. I wish I could have been there when they were filming it.
Yeah. No, it was awesome. She gets runner up, but Silla, she killed a gross man. Who else would get it? Come on now, trick or treat. Like, she just gets it for literally everything she does. You have to have giant amounts of big witch energy to unmask yourself, say you're a witch in front of the Camarilla, like executive leaders, when you don't have access to powers, and just like put yourself in that position. Like, she gets it. There is nobody else. The other person that could have gotten it was Kalita, but she wasn't on screen. But yeah, it's Kalita. But yeah, Silla gets it.
This was her episode to show her big witch energy. Like you said, I mean, there was nothing she was going to be able to do physically because she had a shit ton of Camarilla surrounding her.
Stones at her. He could have thrown that knife at her. Like,
exactly. But there she was.
No, she's like,
I enjoyed it every single time.
She's like, no, come at me, bro. Like, I will fight you until my last breath. Like,
exactly.
Love it.
Oh, Silla.
She gets point deductions for the wind strike thing.
Yeah, girl, we need to talk.
So bad.
Can we please?
That was so bad.
Don't.
What?
Season 3, she better not have these lapses in judgment.
She does this shit all the time, though. She's been doing it since season 1.
I know this. I'm saying season 3, we need to turn around and, like, Rael, come get your girl. And, like, don't let her do this stuff.
We need to read a book in the hiatus of how to be a spy, because you all need to learn. We're all bad at it.
Really do. Honestly, I don't think anyone could really keep Silla from doing anything, though, so...
Let's do things better, though. It's not about stopping her. It's about let's do this a better way.
Can we improve our spy skills in the interim, please?
Yes. That's all. It's a small ask. That's all I'm asking.
Yes.
But yeah, that was...
all right, that was the episode. So tell us who your Big Witch Energy Award goes to. If it's not Silla, I promise I won't judge you too harshly, but...
Hey, just send your argument. Defend it.
Send your argument. All right.
Alrighty.
We'll catch you next time.
Happy Samhain.
Happy Samhain in April.
Yes. Isn't it March?
Wait, fudge. Happy Samhain in March.
Happy Samhain in March.
Happy spring Samhain.
Bye. And with that, we've been Big Witch Energy. If you like this episode, check out all of our other episodes right here on YouTube. Please like, comment below, and subscribe for more amazing content. Hydrate for Lesbian Jesus.